Yeah, peace to the family. I was waiting for a few more people so I get started. I guess I get started right now. They'll come in and yeah, Saneter. Yo, this self quarantine is making some of us go crazy. Saneter is losing it. Yo, we gotta all reach out the side. Yo, my man. Yeah, hold up. Yeah, peace to the family. Oh, I was waiting. Yeah, peace to the family. Hey, what's all this feedback? Hey, yo, this is Saneter right here. Y'all about to die. Yeah, check this out. This is Saneter. Yeah, y'all ready for Saneter? They might flag me for this one. God damn. This shit almost got 1 billion views. This is Saneter before the quarantine. All right, he just chilling. You there? He's normal side. Peace and love, family. Like the video. Like the video. Ha 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 ha. Yo, here goes Saneter. See, he's normal side right now. He's normal. All right. He has an announcement. His what's his mayor's name? It's the governor's name. Yeah, he about to go full pseudo. Saneter, don't do it. Self quarantine. Relax, Saneter. Relax. Relax. It's just 14 days, dude. Oh, it might be 30 days. Relax. Saneter, don't do it, bro. Do not do it. Oh shit. Now that was the announcement. Breaking news. Self quarantine. 14 days. Okay, maybe 30 days. So he went full alarmist. Yo, this is Saneter right now. He went full alarmist, bro. Oh my god. Yo, this is Saneter. He went full alarmist. All right. So let's. This is the new Saneter. Okay. This is the new Saneter. Now that this is the new Saneter, listen to how he's talking now. Listen to this.
Is Negroes.
Now he's cussing us out. Cussing us out. Hold on. Do this right. All right. All right. Listen to Saneter nowadays. This quarantine is killing. Yeah, I got used to quarantine. It's quarantine. It's not bothering me anymore. I'm good. Saneter, he's gonna cuss us because we go full shit. All right, you know how it is nowadays.
Okay. What's crazy to me is Negroes, Negroes, boy.
Hold on. All right, we should be good.
Oh, I don't understand you. As this sister is trying to give you some information, I'm just sitting back looking at your information when she give you. You Negroes just automatically say she's dumb, she's crazy, she's stupid, instead of giving her credit for even having the audacity, the heart, the courage to do a goddamn video in her office that most of you Negroes would say, oh no, I might get fired. I ain't going up in there and say nothing like that, you know? But this sister took time out to come on here to bring y'all the information, and you nigger nuts, man. You nigger nuts automatically says she's stupid, she crazy, she don't know what she's talking about, and she's around this shit. And damn near everybody that we see dying is in the hospital. The people that's at home supporting themselves, you don't see them dropping like flies. Something is going on. When y'all gonna understand that? When you gonna wake up, man? Something is going on, bro. Sisters, something is happening. So, I mean, since when you dumb, stupid Negroes, sheeple, start believing in this goddamn white man all of a sudden? I don't get it. I just don't get it from my people. Like all of a sudden, you Negroes believe in the white man who enslaved your dumb asses, who ripped you and stripped you of a goddamn knowledge of self, and all of a sudden you niggas just believe everything this white man say. I don't get it from y'all. And then when you got a sister that come through and say, yo, you got to be careful, it could be this and it's that, and y'all all of a sudden calling her, oh, you dumb bitch, you don't know what you're talking about, but you believe massa though. Y'all Negroes are sick, bro, and you don't even see it yet. See, me, that's why I said I'm open to everything. I'm open to everything, bro. I'm not counting out this sister's information. I'm not counting out Unc's information. I'm not counting out the anti-vax information. You got to be able to absorb all of it and look at it for yourself. Don't say, oh no, you wrong, they wrong, and they right. Y'all niggas are stupid, man, for real. It gets me mad when I see y'all doing the dumb shit instead of being mature adults, taking in the information and taking it for what it's worth. All right, I like what she said here. I gotta take that part. I don't accept that. Okay, fine. But damn, the outright call a sister dumb and stupid and she don't know what she's talking about is not real. I've heard a few people say similar the same thing she was saying. So you Negroes are sick. Y'all sick. I think if it was a man saying this, or if it was a white doctor saying this, I guarantee you, y'all niggas would have bit it. I guarantee you, y'all would have bit that pill. If it was a white man saying the same exact shit that this sister was saying, you would have bit that damn pill and swallowed it. But because it's a black sister, she don't know what she's talking about. She's dumb. So look at her. Oh, she probably a veterinarian or y'all Negroes are sick, man. And don't even know it. This is why I bring you all the information. I don't just bring you one side. Because if I just bring you one side, you really wouldn't learn shit. So I bring you both sides of the information so you can see what it is. You know, I bring you the pro-vaccines, I bring you the anti-vaccines. What? This? Oh, okay. So that's the job that I got to do. I don't want to just be one-sided with it and just, come on, man. So I'm telling you, at 6 o'clock, have y'all ass in the building because it's going down tonight. I got Brother Polite at 6 o'clock. will be going up against, it's going to be the great debate, going up against Unc, Garfield, and Lord Abba. Shit gonna get crazy. Polite is talking to 5G as well, but he got a spin on it. So y'all got to see what it is. This shit is gonna be good. I'm gonna take a couple of calls and see what's up with y'all. We can take a couple of calls, family. Let's get it in. I got a couple of calls. Got some time to waste for y'all. Yeah, get their ass that black seed oil, baby. Make them drink, make them eat. So, yeah, man, y'all gotta stop, man. Y'all gotta be more mature with this information, man. And just because you don't agree with the goddamn thing, learn something before you say somebody is wrong and inaccurate. Yeah, peace and black power, brother. Make sure you call your ass in too, man. Peace and black power, family. What's your name and where you calling from?
Peace, man. God, Rob Born. What's good, man? What's up,
and all wise and civilized?
You already know. That's how I carry myself, man. You know, try to take the other service, man. I don't know, but you know, it is what it is.
Man, you already know. Good. Same shit. I can't call it, just a different toilet, man. What's happening?
Yeah. Ain't nothing. I just called in because I've seen the title. Well, as a medical profession saying that the coronavirus is fake is bullshit.
She said it's bullshit. That's what she said. Did you hear her? Did you hear what she had to say?
No, I didn't get to hear that. I just happened to see it.
Well, brother, like, don't even make a statement until you got to hear it. Just drag back the video, hear what she's saying. And I'm not saying she right. I'm not saying she wrong. I'm just saying at least listen and get the information.
No, I don't have
now, let me tell you. I got Brother Polite coming on at 6 o'clock. Unc, Garfield, and Lord Abba will be challenging his information. He's dealing with the 5G. You are also welcome to call in if you would like. You are welcome, brother.
Oh, so we get a chance to finally kill your pseudo star?
Brother is not my pseudo star. He's just a brother that's bringing information like everybody else. And that's up to him. It's up to, that's up to y'all whether y'all want to accept it or not. That's why I'm allowing y'all to call in and do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? Y'all got all the rights to come in.
Look, man, one of my day one homies, I happen to look on Instagram and I see the dude in the hospital. And I'm like, yo, what the hell is this dude in the hospital? And I'm like, is this a joke or something? So I'm looking at the title. Yo, man, this dude like 30-something years old, man. He's like, yo, I got your body. I'm like, man, son, I don't want to hear nothing, bro. I don't want to hear it, bro. At this point in stage, anybody that get up here and try to make some kind of conspiracy theory and say shit is coming from some radio magnetic fields that come from cell phones and all, none of that can be proven. You can't prove it. Ain't no studies on that or none of that, man. We don't want to hear it, bro. Yo, we got a problem right now, man. Okay. This shit is crazy.
All right.
You know it's crazy. You know it's crazy, Saneter.
Hear me. It is crazy. Now hear me out. This is why I leave my mind open. I have a brother, that's in there, that's in the coma. Okay? When you went in that hospital and you took that damn test and they said you got this, how you know it couldn't have been a goddamn ammonia? How you know your friend couldn't have just went in there with an ammonia and they said, yeah, this is what you got? How do we know all of this? Why are we beginning all of a sudden trusting this goddamn white man? But for all these years, we know that he always tried to destroy us. He always been trying to murder us. We was never able. He thought that we would never come back from slavery, from 500 years of slavery, castrating us, raping us, killing us, doing all kinds of destructive things to us. And all of a sudden, we believe in this damn white man. How do you know?
Okay.
Let me finish. How do you know? Right. How do you know that he didn't go in there with the ammonia or with a flu or with anything? And they said, well, this is what you got. And once you're in that damn hospital, they do anything to you. They give you the medicine. Remember, with the AIDS, with the so-called AIDS stuff too, they said that our people was dying from AIDS. Later on, when people start exposing them, saying, nah, brother, they ain't dying from AIDS. They dying because of their immune system is weak. They dying because this happened. They dying because of certain other things that went on, not because of AIDS. You see? So I don't know, man. Y'all can go ahead and trust him. I'm not. I'm leaving my windows open. I'm leaving my doors open, not literally, but I'm just saying, I'm looking at all the information that's coming out. I'm not getting that damn scared where I gotta, oh man, this white man is right. Everything is going right. Everything is, nah, brother, that's not me, Bible. I'm surprised at you, God. I'm surprised at you, God. White man is the devil. Come on, brother. You can talk right now. Go ahead.
All right. I'm gonna say this to you. You mixing up two totally different historical things. And here's the reason why you're mixing it up. We're gonna look at the numbers. I deal with math. Mathematics tells you the story of what this problem is. Okay. This is a global pandemic. So I want you to let me get this straight. The second biggest country that has this disease and people are dying from it is in Europe and all them countries over there. Italy has 12,000 deaths. 12,000. They're number one at the death toll. All around these European countries, these people are dying and they are infected with this. So the argument that you're using, we shouldn't trust them, we shouldn't do this. No. It's good to be informed, to know the science, know what these people are talking about, and understand what the disease is, how it's mutated, and how it's been here. It's just a different form of it. The shit mutated. We don't care right now as far as what happened and what it is. The fact of the matter is, they just now closed the parks. You can't go to the playgrounds no more. Let's deal with what is going on right now. People are getting this, bro. And it's all in where we live at in New York. And it ain't just black people. It's all people. You are a human. You have the same biological makeup, and you are suspect to check this virus. The issue now is
I agree. I agree with
the issue now.
Everything you said, I agree.
Yeah. The issue now is, what can we do? Is there anything that we can do? It seems like the only thing they do is talking about social distancing. It seems like one of the major things it is, so people don't get affected. You, out of all people, should be the one that became affected to all this time. You have an immunity disease.
And that's why I'm paying attention to it. Like if I take that goddamn vaccination and the white man saying this is it, that shit could kill you too.
But ain't no vaccine, so we shouldn't even be talking about vaccines right now because there is none.
Right. But no, Ramon, listen, I'm taking precaution. It ain't like I'm saying I believe this. See, I think you're getting what I'm saying wrong.
No, I get what you're saying. You're saying why trust them and they did all of this. I'm telling you that this shit affected a pandemic and this shit shut down the economy.
Let me ask you a question, brother.
Hold on 1 second. You have the president right now talking about shutting down the Federal Reserve and put the gold standard back. When have you heard that in your lifetime? You think this is a game that is just, we just go get the black people? No. This shit, nobody knows what's going on.
Nobody said I'm just going to get the black people. Let me ask you, Ramon.
I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to be quiet right now. Why bring up all of the other stuff? Oh, when should we trust them? Should we believe everything they say? Why should we do it? And this is a pandemic that's affecting the human race. What are you talking about?
Number one, Ramon, I'm not putting my eggs in this goddamn white, wicked fucking government, brother. Hey. You can go ahead and do it if that's your choice. But what I'm doing is I'm just taking precautions. I'm not going out there saying, oh, I can't get it. I could get it. But I'm still saying I'm taking precautions and I'm looking at them with a motherfucking side eye too. I'm not just saying I'm throwing my eggs in the basket and whatever this white man tell me to do, I'm gonna follow him and believe him and then shut down everybody else's information. That's exactly what he wants you to do. He don't want you to listen to other people saying that this shit is a hoax. Listen, for example,
how is it a hoax? How is it
you said you was gonna be quiet. Listen.
No, I'm gonna be quiet. How is it a hoax though?
I'm not saying it's a hoax, brother. I never said it. I'm saying what other people saying is a hoax. I don't want to shut down other people's information because what if it's a lie? You don't know if it's a lie, Ramon. You don't know. You believe it's a lie.
I'm gonna tell you how I know. There's 800,000 people around the world with this goddamn virus, bro.
Right.
Right now,
that's what you say. But that's what you say. No, stop, Ramon. You say it's a virus. You know why? Because the fucking white man told you it was. Okay, and so now you believe him. He said it's a virus, and that's why the people in the hospital is dying from a goddamn virus. And Rob Bourne, the God body, who believed the white man was the devil for all these goddamn years, all of a sudden believe in this goddamn white man. He can't do no wrong now. Whatever he's telling you, he's right. So this white man is a, come on, man. These motherfuckers is wicked in this government, brother.
I want you to explain the bodies that they
I can't explain it, brother. And you can't either. You dealing with belief. You are dealing with belief, brother. You believe what the white man telling you. I'm sitting back saying, no, them motherfuckers killing our people in them hospitals. Because why you don't have the same people dying in the house? Something is not right, bro.
Son, listen closely. This is where the science come into play. Number one, right? They show that people from 18 to 42 are contracting the virus. Those people have a less chance of dying because their immunity system is strong, unless they have other ailments, which is diabetes, which is what you got, lupus, if they got HIV.
Yeah, those are the ones that are saying, yeah, he died from it because look, his immune was weak. And so now we can use him. Now we can use him to say, see, he died from it because of that. Brother, they sacrificing us, they killing us, Rabon, and you going along with this damn crazy shit. They killing us, brother.
They sacrificing the human race. So
yeah, you damn right. They will sacrifice their own.
11,000 people died in Italy for what?
Brother, they will sacrifice their own to get what they want, brother.
What is the benefit if the whole world?
Brother, if I could tell you, I would have told you.
Oh, do
you think the goddamn ones who make this goddamn money give a fuck about some economy? They can put it back together within the snap of a finger, Rabon. I don't believe you. Donald Trump ain't worried about no goddamn money. Bill Blurr ain't worried about no money. I'm surprised at you, brother.
No, I'm surprised at you. You are the one responsible for letting people put information out to the community. If you don't have proof to substantiate your claims and deal with the science and deal with the actual numbers and the actual bodies that we see in there burning, and you're going to sit there and say, I'm going to let people talk about it as a hoax, my man got that shit. My fucking man, Joe Biden got that shit. I don't want to hear nothing about no hoax or not.
Guess what?
Talk about why.
Guess what? Jabari got it, but guess what? Jabari in his house, and Jabari is doing fine. You see? Had Jabari go to that goddamn hospital, he probably wouldn't have been able to text me, coming back and forth with me and Jabari. Think about that. Jabari gonna be all right because Jabari is in a house. He ain't in no goddamn hospital where they pumping his ass up with all kind of fucking killer medicine, brother. Pumping him up with goddamn medicine.
Let me ask you a question.
What?
Let me ask you a question. How do they treat people with coronavirus?
Brother,
Brother,
what I do know
what are they using?
Well, let me answer you, brother. Let me answer you. What I do know is they're hooking you up to machines.
What machine?
I don't know, brother. Damn, I don't know all the shit.
So why are you don't?
What I do know, Rabon, is that people are coming out that motherfucking hospital dead as a doorknob, and they throwing them in trucks, and they filling up trucks with bodies, brother, and they taking them bodies and dropping them off somewhere where none of us don't know. I do know that.
And I'm going to tell you the numbers. Out of today, there's 180,000 people who recovered from the coronavirus. Yes. In New York City, where you live at, where you're supposed to be paying attention instead of listening to conspiracy theories. Instead of advocating conspiracies, it is telling you that the people that are in New York, out of the 37,000 beds that they have, plus the 6,000 or some odd people who are at ICU, the people are getting taken off of ventilators. Those people that are taken off of ventilators are in recovery and are returned home so that they can recover. They don't stay in the hospital. The people who really died from this is because they have problems with their immunity system. They're on respirators for more than 21 days. The science and the numbers show those are the people who are dying. So what are you talking about? Don't come on here, son, and you are supposed to be a champion. You're supposed to be.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm not biting it, brother. You can go ahead. That's not me. Peace And Black Power to you, Rob Bourne. I'm gonna get some more callers, brother. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you, family. All right, brother. Peace. I love you, man. Peace, brother. That's why I'm not a follower of nobody. I follow my own goddamn heart. Peace and Black Power, family. What's your name and where you're calling from? This shit don't look right to me, man. It don't look right.
What's up, man? This is Real G's. What's going on?
All right. What's happening, brother? We live.
Nothing much. Huh?
We live, brother.
We live right now?
Yeah.
So what's happening? What you talking about? It don't look right.
No, I'm saying that shit don't look right with our people dropping and dying like flies. That's all I'm saying. I got every right to feel the way I feel. I don't understand these niggas. I ain't talking about Rob Bourne because I'm looking in the chat room. I don't understand these niggas. They want me to be like them. I'm not like you, nigga. I'm Saneter. So I don't understand you niggas, man. I'm not gonna believe what you believe. I'm not gonna follow you. Fuck, I look like following you, and I'm not talking about. And I'm not talking about Rob Bourne. I'm looking in the chat room. So that's what I'm talking about. Everybody have a right. We are grown. We are men and women, and we have a right to follow what we want to follow. And I choose not to believe in this goddamn white man. I have every right to, with all the shit that this motherfucker have done on the planet, man. I'm looking at our people dropping like flies, not just black people, but white people too. White people too. I don't see nothing where black people is dying in their homes when you see ambulance coming and they taking them out of the house. But everybody that I see is recruiting from the goddamn house. There's a dude, hey family, listen, I'm gonna talk to you later, G's. Peace.
All right.
There's a dude who I'm looking at on The Breakfast Club. Have any of y'all saw that? With a show of hands, have any of y'all saw that with The Breakfast Club? Charlamagne the God is interviewing one of the DJs who had the coronavirus. And he said when he went back to the hospital, the doctor told him he had the coronavirus. And he said that he'd been in his house for 2 weeks and he was drinking tea and he was out, he was down and out. Next thing you know, he said, yo, I started healing. I started feeling a lot better. I started coming along. I started, that's what he was saying. And so I'm looking at it. And then I'm looking at other testimonies of brothers saying, damn, I've been in the house and I've been all right. I'm not saying that the shit is not out there, family. Understand what I'm trying to tell you. What my whole thing is, I'm telling Rob Bourne is, I don't believe in trust in the goddamn hospitals, man. That's what I'm talking about. These motherfuckers setting up tents in Central Park. They got the whole Central Park locked down and bringing people inside of the goddamn tent. People ain't making it. And then they'll tell you, oh yeah, you know what? It's an old person. Look at the governor. The governor's brother got it. He ain't in no hospital. You know why? Because they tipped him off. Yo, don't go in the hospital. Stay at home for a couple of days. It ain't nothing but an pneumonia or something like that, man. You're going to be all right. Just heal the ammonia. You're going to be all right. His ass ain't in no goddamn hospital. You don't see none of these powerful white crackers getting it, the powerful ones. How come Donald Trump ain't got it yet? With all the shit that he been around. Come on, man. That's all I'm saying. Let me get off of here because we got our brother Polite. We getting ready for the showdown tonight. It's going to be great and fiery. So, family, once again, let me let you know that I'm not saying that this thing is a hoax. Hear me straight. I'm just saying be careful of this goddamn government. That's all I'm telling you. Watch this goddamn government. These motherfuckers went through years to destroy the black race, to destroy us. And they will damn sure go through some of their own to get us. Okay? So be aware of them, man. That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to the hospital. I'll die here in the house or whatever. I don't give a fuck. Fuck it. You heard? I'm not the first. I'm telling white people, baby, do this, do whatever you got to do to take care of me. I'm here. I'm in your hands. I'm here. That's all I'm going to be telling them. Clear your throat. Clean my throat. That's it, man. I don't trust the damn hospital. Point blank. How are you going to get mad at your brother for saying he don't trust the hospital? I don't understand it. Come on, man. Peace and Black Power, family. We out of here.
You're now tuned into the best of house of consciousness. On black ones, one or two. You can't front, you know you through. Saneter studio, it's for them that truly know. Saneter TV too, bringing real talk to me and you.
We gotta help outside. We gotta help Sai out. He is going bananas, man. he said, the hell with Ngozi is saying. Where's my brother? So Sai, what about this?
This is some serious shit. So I mean, just study.
Hey Sai, what about this message right here though?
In the wet market and how it developed in Wuhan, China, and understanding how it leaked from bats to pangolins, which is another type of species, into humans to affect our immunities is crazy. The temperament of how bats is supposed to have it is at a specific temperament or temperature. I'm sorry, within a zones that they develop in. In the human species, it's unheard of. Again, we know about it from 2002 when it first popped up, but this strand itself is crazy. So in human beings, we don't know if this stuff goes into dormant because those that's being treated, there is recoveries, but we don't know if this stuff goes into dormant and hide behind cells because viruses affect living cells. Viruses are not living, they affect living cells. The whole thing is for it to affect the living cell because it's bound by nucleotides and it has a protein coat, but you can't measure it through microscopes because it's too small. So now we're dealing with how it affects the cells chemically, and we don't know if this stuff stores behind cells in a process or go in a state of dormant and then becomes a seasonal thing. Now we have to really understand the power of natural selection and evolution to understand what's going on. We have to produce the proper antibodies within our bodies to become immune to this new shit that's here. This coronavirus 19 is here to stay and it's permanent. This is a new type of condition that we'll be dealing with forever until they create a vaccine. And the vaccine will not be created probably until another year and a half or a year. But if this shit goes into dormant and it comes back, it affects the living cells every time in your lungs. It becomes more harder and harder to breathe. People that complain about it, I mean, if you ever had asthma and you overstand a albuterol, and you overstand like people that take a albuterol or have been on a machine for dealing with some type of respiratory problem or issue, if you understand how it works, imagine this times two. I mean, it's not just a regular fucking flu. This shit is super. So we have to understand viruses and how they work. And again, this is some serious shit. So I mean, just studying the wet market and how it developed in Wuhan, China, and how it works, imagine this times two. I mean, it's not just a regular fucking flu. This shit is super. So we have to understand viruses and how they work. And again, if we understand viruses mutate. And again, they become every year. This is why they produce these different vaccines and they produce these different medicines or whatever to fight these different antibiotics to fight these different viruses, because viruses can sometimes outsmart or they evolve or mutate and become more and more resistant every year to fight off the antibiotics that we produce. But I'm telling you, if you're out here smoking or you're out here having a poor diet, because ain't no vaccine right now. For those who don't take medication and for those who want to deal with proper home remedies, I'm telling you to deal with things as antioxidants. Eat garlic, take your turmeric, take sprouted broccoli, drink a lot of water, take your high C, eat your fruits, make sure your immunity is up to fight off whatever you need to fight off. You get what I'm saying? Because your leukocytes or the antigens won't be able to respond to the leukocytes properly for you to produce the proper antibodies to have the proper resistance towards this if your immunity is down. Seriously. So all I'm saying is that take care of yourself, be cautious, this shit's serious. And to the niggas out there that think it's a game, it's not a fucking game, right? this shit's serious. And to the niggas out there that think it's a game, out there that think it's a game, and to the niggas out there that think it's a game, shit serious. And to the niggas out there that think it's a game, and to the niggas out there that think it's a game, and to the niggas out there that think it's a game, and to the niggas out there that think it's a game, it's not a fucking game. Right now, we're dealing with serious times of overstanding evolution and natural selection. Proper adaptation must take its place and take its core. So you have to take care of yourself. So for those who deal with proper home remedies, make sure your diet right. Do some form of exercise, because exercise also helps boost your immunities. Understand how the immune system works. Understand how those leukocyte works that's putting around the defenses in order to produce the proper antibodies to fight against whatever's coming towards our way.
Information. Well, shit, this is the same stuff that I would put just from this coronavirus. So I did this initially to help them, but now I understand that everybody's at risk for this, okay? So just to show you my credentials, here's at first, here is my med school diploma. Dr. Vaughn, you shouldn't be showing your personal information. Well, shit, this is the same stuff that I would put on my office, right? So Texas A&M University Health Science Center, there's my name. Now you know my middle name, okay? College of Medicine and Doctor of Medicine, all right? So I'm a doctor. That's important that you need to know that. And I'm an MD, so I'm not a PhD, and that's fine if there are PhDs, but I'm not a PhD doctor. I'm an MD, I'm a medical doctor. And then here's my residency. In order to go, after you're done with med school, you have to do residency. So here's my residency certificate, Christus St. Joseph's Hospital program. I was the last graduating class. And here's my name again, already with the MD because I'd already gone to med school, okay? And then general surgery. So I'm a general surgeon by training. I finished residency in 2005, okay? So that's me. I've written 13 books. I was director of bariatrics in Albuquerque, New Mexico at Loveless Hospital. 3 hospital system was my last stint. And so I'm here to tell you about coronavirus. And this is super, super important, okay? I want to explain the disease process first, how it actually kills you. And then I'm going to demonstrate it in a way that you won't be able to forget it and that you will want to share with your friends and loved ones. And then I want to give you the statistics to explain why this is super important, okay? So do me a favor right now, please hit share on this video. This is a super important video. We need to have lots of people watching this and spread this information, okay? All right, so first of all, let's get our definitions correct, okay? The actual virus that we're talking about is SARS-CoV-2. SARS, because this is a SARS virus that we saw earlier. We've had 3. This is the second form of this, SARS. CoV for coronavirus 2. It's the second one. All right. And the disease that it causes is COVID-19, COVID-19, coronavirus disease 19. Coronavirus itself is a group of type of viruses. It's a family of viruses that have been with us for a long time. Now, we are calling this the novel. Novel means new, not novel like you read. A novel coronavirus means it's a new coronavirus, right? SARS-CoV-2. And because it's new, there is no immunity to this, which means what? Everybody who comes in contact with this virus will catch it, will have some sort of symptoms. It can be mild. There's actually, we're considering there might be some asymptomatic carriers, right? That's a whole different conversation. 80% are going to have mild case of coronavirus. And remember the definition, by mild, we mean you don't need to be hospitalized. So this is not the regular flu. So anybody who says, hey, this is just like the regular flu. No, it's not. This is, you don't need to be hospitalized. That's 80% of people, okay? 20% of people will need to be hospitalized. Of those, probably about half are going to need to be in the ICU. And of those, about half will need to be on respirators. If you have a huge number, we just you do the math, we don't have enough respirators. Now, why am I talking about respirators? Because that actually has to do with how coronavirus kills. Let's get into this. So coronavirus is a respiratory breathing lung issue, okay? It's a respiratory illness. That's important because if anybody who has respiratory issues already, you're at high risk. If you had a lung resection, if you've had COPD, if you're on oxygen, if you have sleep apnea, if you have poorly controlled asthma, you're at risk, guys. So that's a lot of people. Real quick, there's a direct correlation with coronavirus and bad outcomes. If you have high blood pressure, that's most of America, that's a bunch of Americans right there. High blood pressure is and I'm going to explain why that's important, okay, here in a second. High blood pressure, it's related, I promise it's related. Morbid obesity, that's most of my following. Now, if you lost the weight, then you're at normal risk. But if you are BMI over 40, you're at a high risk, okay? Older age, but remember that numbers coming down. It's not 80-year-olds. We are warning 60-year-olds about this, and now we're having people in their 40s being hospitalized and people in their 30s dying from this, okay? So this is really, really serious. Okay, so what does this mean? This is a respiratory virus. So remember, this virus is airborne, okay? Listen, it's airborne. And it's also contact. That's how it's transmitted. So if you're around somebody who has the coronavirus and they sneeze and you're within 6 feet and you take a deep breath, you have a very good chance of catching it. Okay, Dr. Vong, I'm an introvert. I'm not around people. If you kiss them, if you hug them, if they breathe on you, if they snore on you, if you understand, it's in the air, right? It's droplets. We think it's droplets. So it has to be droplets as opposed to being aerosolized where it can live outside without being in droplets. This is important because if it's aerosolized, if it's able to survive without being in droplets, then our masks don't do shit, okay? But anyway, eventually this virus has to make its way into our oral airway, this oral airway, okay? Because, and it's a weird, like sometimes we learn anatomy or know about it, but we just don't make the connection. Give me an amen if you've ever studied anatomy, but somehow it just doesn't connect, right? So our mucous membranes, our trachea, our nasal passages, our sinuses all come together in our mouths, goes down our throats, our scrawny chicken neck throats here. And then there's 2 tubes. One is our esophagus, where our food goes, and one's our trachea, which is where our lungs and our air passes. And that's where you, so people get confused by this. When you burp from your esophagus, your stomach. When you cough from your lungs, your trachea. So this is a respiratory illness. So the virus will make its way into your nose, throat, and then will go into your airways. This is your lungs, okay? All right. So we're talking about your lungs. Now, I want to do a real quick demonstration. So imagine, Dr. Vaughn, what are your lungs? Right here, guys. Okay, put these here, and actually your lungs actually go up to your clavicles, believe it or not, if you want to be accurately. These aren't quite big enough. But your lungs are huge. So the top of your lungs go up right above your clavicle, your shoulder bone right here. They do. Trust me, they do. And they go way, take a deep breath. Everyone take a deep breath for me. When you do that, your diaphragm pushes down and your lungs, if you go on your, I might have to jump for this. If you all can see way down there, you can feel your ribs. You can feel the bottom of your ribs is right above your belt line. Guys, your lungs go way down here, way down there, past, like almost to your waistline. Those are your ribs. So those are your lungs. Your lungs are huge. So these are small examples. I would really need a bunch all through here, all down through here. You guys get the idea, right? So now you have these two lungs, right? Now watch. Your lungs have little air pockets in them. They're called alveoli. You see right there? And like these little sponges here, there are little air pockets in here. All right. That's what I'm trying to show you here. That's what I'm demonstrating. These little air pockets. Okay. And that's how you do the gas exchange. Okay. Now, to keep this real simple, there are two types of cells in your lungs. Type 1 pneumocyte is what does the exchange of gases. So what do your lungs do, right? Take a deep breath. What comes in? Oxygen. Exhale, what comes out? Carbon dioxide, CO2. Well, the exchange between the oxygen and the CO2 is in type 1 pneumocytes, type 1 lung cells, okay? Now, obviously, let me ask you this question. How long can you hold your breath for? 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Maybe 1 minute. Deep sea divers can maybe do 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. The world record is something like 15 minutes or something like that. But for the most part, most of us, you're talking about holding your breath for about a minute, minute and a half, right? So imagine if your head is underwater. I always tell my patients this story. It's kind of like if your pimp is holding your head in the toilet. If your pimp is holding your head in the toilet, how long could you hold your breath for? Right? Not very long, a minute and a half. First of all, why do you have a pimp? You know, you kind of messed up your life. You know, 2, if you have a pimp, that's God bless you. Sometimes you have to have a pimp in life. That's fine. I'm not judging, But why are you pissed off your pimp? I mean, your life is pretty screwed up. So if your pimp is holding your head in the toilet, how long can you live for? Answer, not very long. Maybe a minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes, right? Without air. So this oxygen, now that, the reason why I'm telling you that is because it's super important. It's super important in terms of what I have to explain on how the virus kills, okay? So this oxygen exchange is super important. Now, there's another type of cell, type 2 pneumocytes, that's responsible for producing something called surfactant. Now, surfactant is, imagine like a little layer of like goo that lines, it's a real thin lining of your alveoli, right? And it keeps the alveoli, helps it to collapse and expand, super important. So you're around somebody that coughed or you kissed them and they're infected, or you're out and about. And remember, the coronavirus also lives on surfaces. So how long is debatable? Stainless steel might be 2 or 3 days. You know, plastics, wood, it's different. It's anywhere from a few hours to a couple of days, possibly. We're not sure. So there's contact. You can, that's shopping cart. That's the rail. That's the whole, you're in the subway, you're holding. You've touched something that someone has touched that's infected. Now, then it has to go from your hand. Then you have to touch your face. You wipe your shirt, wash your jeans, you know, you hand wash, you kill that little fucker, bacteria, that virus, you kill it, you wash it, then it's gone. Now you touch your face all you want. But maybe you just, you know, because we randomly just kind of do stuff like this all the time. But coronavirus now has made its way, my hands are clean by the way, that has made its way now into your mouth, the oral airway, okay? So now, anyway, it's in your lungs. Now, what does it do? It targets your type 2 pneumocytes. And your type 2 pneumocytes has this receptor called the angiotensin converting enzyme. This is the receptor. Now, why is this important? Because hypertension, have you ever heard of an ACE inhibitor? ACE inhibitor, it helps regulate blood pressure medicine. Now you understand why people with high blood pressure are at risk, because this coronavirus targets this ACE protein, okay? And then it makes its way into this little, guy, makes its way into your type 2 pneumocyte. Now, I don't want to get too technical on this, but basically it's going to make a bunch, get too technical on this, but basically it's going to make a bunch, all right, a bunch of little progeny. It's going to replicate itself, and then what happens? This cell will then die. Now this is one little tiny cell of millions of cells, right? So it's this one little cell dies. But then what happens? Because the cell dies, it causes a huge inflammatory response. So your body then does a lot of stuff. It sends out a lot of interleukin 1, interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor, alpha. So your body starts to mount an immune response. And it actually, your immune response, when it starts to rapidly get out of control, is actually how you die. It's your own body trying to save you, ends up really just killing you, okay? So this dies. So the cell dies, and then when the cell dies, there's a huge immune response, and then the alveoli in here. So here we have an alveoli. That's these little air pockets you see in your lungs, okay? These microscopic air pockets here, all right? Your alveoli then brings in fluid, okay? Then fluid goes into your alveoli. Fluid goes into your alveoli and starts filling up with fluid. And what is that called when your alveoli fills up with fluid? Anyone know? And that fluid is like pus and debris and these response immune modulators. What's that called? Anyone know? So that is pneumonia. It's called pneumonia. And usually this is going to start lower areas of pneumonia. Why? Well, it's gravity dependent. It's going to make its way down low because it's gravity dependent. You're going to see this sort of stuff usually down low, okay? It's a consolidation is what we call it. This is where it gets serious, guys. So please do me a favor. Please hit share. This is going to be super important. I'm going to do this demonstration real quick. All right? How this really kills you. Okay, now watch me now. So your alveoli, your lungs are filling up with fluid. So I have your lungs here, right? Lungs, your lungs. Your lung, like deep breath, expands, gets smaller. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. It gets oxygen exchange. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Does that make sense? Now, I have for you right here, this bowl of water. It has red food coloring, but it's water. Now watch. Exhale, inhale. And suddenly, this coronavirus is going to come in, cause this massive inflammatory response. Watch this. And now your lung gets full. Oh, hell. Look at that. Gets full of liquid. At first, you can still work, all right? It's still working, but watch this. As this progresses, I'll leave that in there. And as more and more fluid comes into your lungs, I'm about to make a huge mess. As more and more fluid comes into your lung and you try to take a deep breath, look, it stiffens. When you have fluid into your lungs, does this make sense? It stiffens. It can't move. It can't move. All right? It can't get rid of the fluid. Now, remember what I showed you here, okay? the actual coronavirus is actually killing your pneumocytes. So your little alveoli ends up looking like, check this out, looks like this. See, it's all necrotic, it's all broken, it's all nasty. Healthy, not healthy, because it's been destroyed. Now, when that cell gets like this, now it's starting to bring in a bunch of fluid. And now can't move, can't exchange oxygen. And then it gets worse and worse. Remember the story? The pimp holding your breath underwater? Now you got huge masses of pneumonia consolidation. That leads to something we call ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. You can't exchange oxygen. Your lungs are literally dying with fluid. Everything is crushed in there. You can't breathe. You're literally suffocating underwater. If you've ever had like a breathing attack where you can't, I can't catch my breath. I can't catch my breath. That's what happens with this coronavirus. That's how it kills you. A lot of people sit there and wonder, Dr. Vaughn, all right, so this is 80% of people, right? 80% are going to have like flu-like symptoms, bad flu. And then 3% of people, I know this is morbid, 3% will die. Okay, you guys follow me here? People go, Dr. Vaughn, what happens between, like, how do we get from here to here? All right, well, the bridge to get from here to die, there's a bridge, and that bridge is pneumonia, specifically leading to something called ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. At this point, once you get to ARDS, your lungs are totally consolidated. You got lots of pockets. Not only do you have your alveoli full of fluid, you also have fluid in your what's called your interstitial space, or the space between the cells. Your interstitial space gets fluid. So you see the alveoli pockets I tried to show you, right? But also the tissues, your actual lung tissues around your alveoli get full of fluid. Like this one, right? And now, like, your lung can't move and you can't exchange oxygen. And now you can't breathe. And now it's just like the pimp holding your head underwater. You can't breathe. So how do you treat ARDS? Dr. Vaughn, once you start having respiratory problems, like you can't breathe, you're gasping for air, the timeline is really fast, right? If you ever get to this point, and God bless you, I don't want you to ever get to this point, you or any of your loved ones, but too many of us are about to hear this phrase. Your doctor is going to come in and say something like this: we are really worried that your mom is going to tire out. If you hear that, the next thing that's going to come is we need to put a breathing tube in your mom. We need to breathe for her. We need to put her on a ventilator. We need to put her on a respirator because we are worried she's going to tire out. So you're gasping for air and your muscles will tire out. Your lungs are filling up with fluid, this interstitial fluid, as well as the alveolar fluid, creating this consolidation. I can't get enough oxygen. I can't get enough oxygen. And that's how we die. And so the treatment is to put you on a ventilator. We are worried mom is going to tire out. So we put her on a ventilator. We're going to breathe for her. And the numbers are changing, but we think about 50% of the time, half the time you get put on a ventilator, they don't make it. The cascading event is just too big. It turns from a lung problem to then what's called sepsis. You have other organ failures. So what happens when you can't have enough oxygen? What happens when your heart doesn't get enough oxygen? Well, you're going to go into cardiac arrest. What happens when your liver doesn't get enough oxygen or blood flow? Well, you're going to have, inflammatory markers in your liver. You're going to go into liver failure. More importantly, your kidneys. What happens if your kidneys don't get enough blood flow? You're going to go into kidney failure. And we just don't have that many dialysis machines. We don't have enough ventilators to handle this small amount of people who are going to need it. Trust me, okay? So let me tell you real quick about the numbers, because the numbers, how are we doing? Okay, the numbers are super important, right, guys? Today's March 23rd. March 23rd. We are way ahead of schedule. This is not good. This is not good. A week ago, I predicted by this date, we would be probably around like 20,000 cases in America alone. We are over 32,000 cases now. We are 345,000 cases worldwide, 15,000 deaths, guys. And you have to think about this, because a month ago, none of y'all even heard of coronavirus. A month ago, Italy was walking around all happy and easygoing. Now they have 50,000 cases. They have 1,500 deaths. They have 5,000 deaths. They have a 10% death rate. So they're overwhelmed, right? God bless our first responders, our doctors, our nurses, our techs, our phlebotomists, our nursing assistants. God bless them, right? Because they are starting to suffer burnout. We're getting reports from the Italian doctors now. They are really burnt out. They're all working 100, 110-hour weeks. They are stressed out. They're running out of personal protection equipment. They're worried about passing this on to their own family. We have colleagues, we have doctors and intensivists and nurses who have died now not gotten sick, fucker. Like, quit being a smartass. They have died trying to help your family member, and you won't take this seriously. You still think this is a political thing. You still think this is media hype, and they fucking died trying to help your family member, okay? So the timeline for this, we are just getting started on this, guys. We will not hit the peak until mid-May, May 15th, 16th. And let's make up a number. In the United States alone, we have already passed 8,000 cases in one day, guys. In one day. Imagine if you just keep doubling that number every 3 days, and we're going to be like crazy high. But I'll do the math for you, because some people are skeptical, and I'll just make it up. Let's say 100,000 cases in mid-May is the peak. Now, here's the thing about a peak. You don't fucking know it's the peak until you start heading downhill. Just like you never knew that was the best you were going to look until you started getting ugly. You didn't know that was the lowest you were ever going to weigh until you started gaining the weight. Like, you don't know what the peak is, right? You understand? So let's say we hit the peak mid-May. That's the projection, mid-May, and let's say it's 100,000 cases. We will be lucky if it's less than 100,000 cases. If it's 100,000 cases or less, I mean, we will be seriously lucky. But let's say it is. Well, that's May 15th. But that means May 16th, you still have 90,000 new cases, in addition to the previous 100,000 from yesterday. And then May 17th is 80,000 new cases on top. Listen, we are going to be in this for a long time, right? So you have to be prepared. I mean, please hit share. This is super important information. You are about to see. This week is going to blow the fucking smithereens up. This week is going to be horrible in terms of numbers of cases. It's going to be exponentially skyrocketing. This is all you're going to see is about COVID-19. These are all the posts you're going to see. Every time somebody posts something stupid about COVID-19, about how coronavirus is overblown, about how, it's media hype, it's fear mongering, please show them this video. Please give them a virtual bitch slap like this I say, Dr. Vaughn, just explain how you're going to die, how your loved one's going to die. Yes, you luckily recovered, but this is your grandmother. And because you didn't take this seriously, because you went to Miami Beach, you did spring break, you partied, you still going to bars and restaurants, you're still not taking this seriously. We do not have a treatment for this, guys. This is what's going to happen. We don't have enough ventilators. It's going to be 12 months to 18 months before we get a vaccination. Too many people are going to die. You cannot count on vaccinations. We don't have a medical treatment for this. We are shooting in the dark with chloroquine and azithromycin. They are guessing, right? We're giving people IV steroids, methylprednisolone, because that's what's worked in the past for when you have this ARDS, but we're not really sure. People are tanking too fast. That's what my colleagues are saying on the front lines. You guys need to start taking this much, much more seriously. Okay. We are in this for the long term. So the timeline is we're going to hit the peak in May, but that means we're going to still have a shit ton of cases in May, June. Come July, because there's a lag time, we're going to start burying our family members. The death toll will increase in July. You're going to see a substantial, huge increase in the death toll in July. Now, here's the sad part. You've been out of work 3 months. Your small business has closed down. You've had to fire all your employees. Your employer has fired you, has laid you off, has told you to go file for unemployment. The unemployment office, you can't get through because the phone lines are totally backed up. How are you going to pay for the funeral? How are you going to pay for the funeral? You're going to do a GoFundMe page like you did last time when your uncle died? Well, good luck with that. Because who's going to donate to your GoFundMe page when everybody's been out of work? This is a horrific.
I got to be honest with you. We could be on the verge of a depression, not a recession, a depression if things don't go right. We just got the worst monthly employment report since 2009, 700,000 jobs lost. And that doesn't even cover the last 2 weeks where we had nearly 10 million jobless claims. The bad numbers are just beginning, which is why the averages got hit today. Dow losing 361 points, S&P sinking 1.51%, NASDAQ falling 1.53%. It could have been worse earlier in the day. It's bad. Now, this is going to be a brutal period, but if we handle things right, it will be a short depression. I would call it a decession or a repression, but the first sounds silly, and we don't want a repression. Can we have a mini depression? I mean, we're in uncharted waters. I hope so. Still, I think we're making some real progress on the economic front. Today, countless small businesses applied for hundreds of billions of dollars in loans that will allow them to stay open during the tough period. And the government will forgive the loans if you use that money to cover your payroll, don't lay off your workers. I think it is a terrific program. Full disclosure, I applied for it myself for my 2 restaurants today. Banks all over the country are furiously trying to process these applications. You know what? Look, they're going to be glitches. Nothing's perfect. But perfect here is the enemy of the good. And I celebrate this plan as the best it can be. And the community banks are signing up people in incredible numbers. I want to make this right here. Do you mind if I make this a grumble-free zone for a moment? Grumble-free about a plan that was done with incredible.
Is the CDC recommending Americans wear masks in public? Let's bring in CNBC contributor Dr. Scott Gottlieb right now. He is the former FDA commissioner. Doctor, it's good to have you with us again. Your reaction to what the CDC is now recommending?
Good policy. There's more data that came out today. I put it up on my Twitter account about how masks can prompt a reduction in transmission of flu and presumably coronavirus. And so this should be incrementally helpful in areas especially that are hard hit by the coronavirus, where you have a lot of mildly symptomatic or asymptomatic people who are going out and potentially spraying the virus. This will cut down on their risk of transmitting the virus to others. That's going to be the biggest effect of this policy.
We've talked nightly, Dr. Gottlieb, about governors who are issuing stay-at-home orders and those who are not. Tonight, the Missouri governor has issued one. Still, others are not. The president asked about it tonight, says he is leaving it up to them.
Well, the federal policy amounts to a stay-at-home order, if you will, if the governors would follow it. In our federalist system, it really does fall into the hands of the governors and local officials to implement those recommendations. And some governors haven't. As you said, if you look at data in the heartland and the Midwest, you see much more travel by consumers. Consumers are not staying at home, they're going out, they're not social distancing.
It's live now with the story, Shannon.
Yeah, there's still so much that we don't know about this virus. It seems like the duration and the range of symptoms seems to be different for everyone.
Shannon Fela is 31. She's always been healthy and active. So when she started feeling sick around March 12th, the Chicago woman thought it was just a cold.
Around day 13, 14, I actually lost all of my smell and taste, and I still don't have it back to this day. So that was another indicator where I started to get a little bit more worried.
After being tested for strep, her symptoms continued to get worse.
How to explain it is it feels like there's like a 300-pound person sitting on my chest. And when it got really bad, I felt like I was almost breathing from a straw.
Last Thursday, Shannon finally went to the emergency room at Northwestern.
This is the first time I've ever had a hospital experience. So you're thrown into this room, you're getting your blood taken, you're getting x-rays, you're getting your vitals taken, you have an EKG hooked up to you, and you're getting a swab up your nose. It is scary, and to do it alone is even scarier.
Shannon's oxygen levels dipped and her heart rate raced, but she never had a fever or chills. After 5 days in the hospital, her doctors confirmed she had COVID-19.
I just want to kind of let everyone know that although that is going to be the primary case, you may have it and you don't have any fever and you don't have any chills. So know that like symptoms and case to case is going to look so different.
After 22 days with symptoms, Shannon says she's finally starting to feel better.
Right now, I am feeling quite a bit better, but I do still have a little bit of tightness, shortness of breath in my chest, especially even when I get up to small things like go to the bathroom or, try to wash the dishes.
And now that Shannon's out.
This is a very relentless disease. It grabs you and then you sort of get better and then it comes back and then you sort of get better and then it comes back. So I'm in that phase where I'm running fever every night for the last 4 or 5 nights, and it just gets tiring after a while. But fortunately, I haven't had any respiratory trouble, so I'm okay. Symptoms are very mild to start off with. A little bit of cough, headache, runny nose, but nothing beyond that for the first 36 hours. Got a little bit worse with some muscle aches, got tested, it was positive. And by Wednesday, this is now day 5, I thought I was done with it. I felt great. And then suddenly on that Wednesday night, boom, fever, muscle aches, pain everywhere. Just a horrible feeling. But as a doctor, I kind of know what to look for. And I'm monitoring my breathing like a hawk and trying to make sure that that doesn't go south. And knock on wood, I've done well with that so far. We studied pretty well about COVID-19. I knew what it did. The thing about it is that the symptoms are highly variable and they're different in everyone. And I think what we've learned over the last couple of weeks, just in the US experience, a lot of the dogma that it's only older people, that it doesn't really affect people who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and it's okay if they get it, it's no big deal. That is not true. There are lots of 30 and 40-year-olds on respirators right now. And as a 64-year-old, I'm monitoring every day what my symptoms are, but I really think I'm through the woods on this right now. The other point I'd like to make is that the social distancing only goes so far. We really need to all stay at home, and leave the house only when it's essential. That means for food, for medicines. If you're working in an essential business like healthcare or sanitation or police, fire, yes. If you're in the media, that's fine. There's essential stuff that we all have to do. But if it's not essential and you can work from home, stay at home. Minimize your interaction with others.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel.
Many medical professionals on the front lines compare the conditions that they face to what it's like in war zones. One Chicago emergency room doctor spoke with our lead national correspondent, David Bagnow, during a few chaotic moments on his shift. David, what did you see? Because I hear chaotic is the right word here.
Well, Gail, we had no idea that Dr. Scott Samlin was going to answer the Skype call for the interview in the emergency department. Now, there were other doctors attending to the patients in need, but what you're about to hear may be one of the most sobering and surreal accounts you have heard from the front line so far.
This is the most scared I've ever been being an ER doctor. And it's not just because of me, it's because I have a wife and a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old at home. I don't want to expose them. People say it's our job. It's not our job, it's our duty, and that's what we signed up for.
That's Dr. Scott Samlin. He's an emergency room doctor at Mount Sinai Hospital on the west side of Chicago.
I deal with gunshots every day and trauma and crazy stuff, and this is the only thing that scares me.
How many patients do you see on a daily basis that are suspected of being COVID positive?
Over 60 to 70% every day.
We keep hearing that young people are not as affected by this. Has that been your experience?
You can tell it's a 27-year-old I intubated last week who had no medical problems.
Dr. Samlin says anyone arriving at the emergency room now who has respiratory problems is being treated as if they're positive for COVID, because doctors can't afford to wait the 3 days that it's been taking to get the results back.
So we do deductive reasoning. If their white count is normal and their lymphopenic, which is something that we looked at, and their x-ray looks like COVID and their influenza negative, it's COVID. Well, we have another COVID come in. Do you want to see the setup before it comes in?
Please, please.
So before we go in, we put on gowns, we put on goggles, we put on as much PPE as we had. Respirators, we could have them to intubate the patient, put a tube down their throat. But this is becoming all too common. What? The box is right here.
The physician protection box, as they call it, is something the doctors had made at a local plastic manufacturer to help them deal with the COVID crisis.
This way I'm not in front of the patient's mouth.
Protective gear is scarce here, Dr. Samlin says, especially masks.
When you use them for a shift, we put them in a brown paper bag.
This COVID patient who's coming in right now, the suspected COVID, he's coming by ambulance, I assume. How critical is he?
They're doing CPR on him. Yeah.
These patients are dying alone, which is really sad.
And that is because suspected COVID patients need to be isolated, says Dr. Chris Scadeller, who's using a respirator that he got from his previous job and a filter that his father, who works in construction, gave him. How you doing?
Frustrated. There was a CDC said we could use bandanas as a form of protection for ourselves instead of masks. So I got one. I carry in my pocket. It's frustrating. Feels like the government let us down.
How you doing?
Thank you for asking. I'm not well. It's not a joke. I want people to stay home. This is the real deal.
Are they still performing CPR?
No, they're dead.
There was no time to even test that patient for COVID, but the precautions were taken. Dr. Samlin says beside PPE and a break, this is what they need.
If you have a friend or a colleague or anybody you know in the healthcare industry who's working on the front lines, just send them a text saying, thinking about you. God bless you. Love you. Thank you for what you're doing. That's all we need.
On behalf of a grateful country, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Oh, David, I was so struck with Dr. Sandlin when he said, no, they're dead, the simplicity in which he said that. And when he also said many times, you don't take your work home, but you have no choice but to take this home. It's really overwhelming to hear these stories.
I want you to know that they started a GoFundMe page so they could raise money to buy their own equipment. That's how scarce the equipment is. And they've gotten money and they bought it. And they're using everything from the painter's mask to athletes' goggles just to do the job daily. And they are exposed to this from the start to the end of their shift.
Sometimes there are no words, just tears. Amanda Pomachan is waiting for her husband T2.
It's the longest 5 minutes of waiting I've ever done in my life.
It'll be the first time she's been able to touch him since he was admitted to the hospital more than 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
It's a reunion Amanda and T2 both feared he wouldn't live to see.
What was that moment like for both of you?
It was the most joy I've ever felt. It really was. It felt like everything was whole finally again.
Felt like busting out of jail.
COVID-19 ravaged T2's health, putting him in intensive care, unable to breathe for himself. Now his doctors and nurses all there for his send-off.
That as a nurse, it makes it worth it. Risking our lives.
Tonight, a lawyer from Detroit is sharing an important message about the coronavirus. He and his wife both have it, and they are urging people in our community to stay calm, but to also stay home to prevent the spread of the virus. Our Heather Cataldo joins us now with the story. Heather?
Juan Gonzalez says while he and his wife are on the mend, he says everyone needs to do their part to keep others healthy. He also says he experienced one of the newer symptoms doctors are saying we should look out for.
It was about Monday afternoon. I was just kind of feeling really tired, headache, a little bit of the chills.
Attorney Juan Gonzalez says last Monday he left work as soon as he started feeling ill.
My wife took my temperature, it was about 100.7. And I drove up to Beaumont, waited in the line for about 7 hours. And then I was finally tested at like 9 p.m.
Juan says on Wednesday morning, the health department told him he was diagnosed with COVID-19.
Kind of in shock, to be honest with you, but it was just good to know that there was a result and that I, some peace of mind to it.
Juan says the health department asked him to retrace his steps, and they both notified everyone he had been in contact with, including other members of the legal community in various Metro Detroit courtrooms.
Some people were very thankful that I called and let them know. Some were scared. I mean, I think it's a new thing for everybody. So it's just, I wanted to make sure that I covered all my bases just to give people at least peace of mind.
Juan says he had no idea where he was exposed to the coronavirus.
Could have gotten in the elevator, at the court, at the grocery store. I just don't know, but I hadn't traveled anywhere.
Juan's wife is also presumed positive for coronavirus, and they've had to isolate themselves while a caregiver helps with their 14-month-old son.
We've isolated upstairs, and she's been really a godsend helping out with all this.
For this family, the symptoms have been relatively mild, and for that, they are very grateful.
The biggest thing I noticed was just extreme fatigue and just like the onset of the flu, just kind of the chills. You definitely notice that something's wrong. I really didn't have a cough.
Juan agrees with Governor Gretchen Whitmer's stay-at-home order. He says if everyone can stay home and stop spreading the virus, we will beat this.
My message is just stay calm, stay safe. If you can, stay inside. I mean, this is a serious thing. We all got to come together and just, look out for each other and be safe.
Doctors say one of the new symptoms you need to watch for is the loss of your sense of taste and your sense of smell. Juan says his sense of smell definitely wasn't quite right while he was sick. So if that happens to you or someone you love, you should seek help. In the newsroom, I'm Heather Cataldo, 7 Action News.
As the death toll from the coronavirus rises, we are also hearing inspiring stories from those who have recovered. People we've interviewed describe the debilitating symptoms and how their treatment and support systems help them pull through this. Our lead national correspondent, David Begnaud, he's home too, talked to some of them. He joins us again from his New York City apartment. David, always good to see you. What did you learn from the interviews?
that there's hope happening around the country, Gail, by which people are walking out of a hospital survivors. You know, it's important for us as journalists to not only tell you where the cases are rising, but also where people are surviving. Because folks have said to me, David, I want to know how they were treated and how their recovery is going. So this morning, we're going to take you to Puerto Rico and Louisiana, but we're going to start in Georgia.
And look at me, I'm home.
Clay Bentley is sure happy to be home. He is quarantined in his bedroom after spending 12 days in a Georgia hospital. We followed his fight against coronavirus for more than a week.
I can't even hardly move, and I can't breathe. I can't catch my breath.
There was a point where the doctors told Clay there was really nothing more they could do.
They say, you know, we put these antibiotics through your system, and they said you in worse shape today than you were when you came in the hospital. It's like 10 times stronger than the flu. When it hits you like a hammer.
Clay says right about when the doctors were going to put him on a ventilator, there were signs of improvement. He says his faith was key to his recovery.
I couldn't breathe at all. And then all of a sudden, I felt the Lord. I mean, his presence was there, and I felt him blow up air in my lungs.
That chest tightness and feeling like you can't get your breath all the way, that's really scary.
Aviva Williamson of Shreveport, Louisiana, was diagnosed 4 days ago. The 36-year-old mother of four says she's still dealing with dizziness and fatigue.
I try to keep a mindset, you know, that I'm just going to get through it and nothing else bad is going to happen.
And then there's the story of Frank Eller, an 87-year-old retired Marine from San Diego who was just released from the hospital. He was in critical condition when he was evacuated from a cruise ship and taken to a hospital in Mayaguez, Puerto Rico 2 weeks ago. He arrived with pneumonia and 5 underlying conditions, severe heart conditions, including a leaky heart valve and even emphysema in one lung. We spoke to him from his hospital bed a week ago.
At what point in the treatment progress did you start to feel relief?
I would say once they got me in this isolation room and started getting the antibiotics in me and the oxygen, almost immediately. Of course, we could not have done it without the hospital's outstanding efforts. And finally, the grace of God.
Amen.
That's why I'm here.
Mr. Eller is at home this morning in San Diego. He was never on a ventilator. And I can't get over this. 5 underlying health conditions, the emphysema in one lung, heart disease, leaky heart valve, peripheral neuropathy, and an irregular heartbeat. And he still survived at 87. How's that for hope?
That is a wonderful story.
We needed to hear that, David. We need to hear the stories of survival. I love the Clay story because we've been following him all over the country to see him back home. That's great. I love all the stories, actually, of everybody that survived.
Yeah, it is.
And wonderful. We have an abundance of hope here, David. We do indeed. Thank you for contributing that reporting.
Right about when the doctors were going to put him on a ventilator, there were signs of improvement. He says his faith was key to his recovery.
I couldn't breathe at all. And then all of a sudden, I felt the Lord. I mean, his presence was there, and I felt him blow up air in my lungs.
That chest tightness and feeling like you can't get your breath all the way, that's really scary.
Aviva Williamson of Shreveport, Louisiana, was diagnosed 4 days ago. The 36
bad is going to happen.
And then there's the story of Frank Eller, an 87-year-old retired Marine from San Diego who was just released from the hospital. He was in critical condition when he was evacuated from a cruise ship and taken to a hospital in Mayaguez, Puerto Rico 2 weeks ago. He arrived with pneumonia and 5 underlying conditions, severe heart conditions, including a leaky heart valve and even emphysema in one lung. We spoke to him from his hospital bed a week ago.
At what point in the treatment progress did you start to feel relief?
I would say once they got me in this isolation room and started getting the antibiotics in me and the oxygen.
Okay, so let me explain that. The antibiotics is for pneumonia, okay? Because the virus, it causes other side effects. And as you know, pneumonia is one of them. You have lung infections. So antibiotics is for that, for those infections. Yep. So let's go. Okay, I'm on top of this. You dig?
At first, you might think it's a cold, and it could be, but COVID-19 could escalate. Here's what you need to know. According to the World Health Organization China Joint Mission on COVID-19, as of February 20th, 80% of laboratory confirmed cases were mild to moderate, 14% were severe, and 6% were critical. Just to be clear, a mild case of COVID-19 is not like a mild cold. The symptoms will still be pretty severe. Anything less than needing oxygen puts you in this category. Severe cases do need supplemental oxygen, and critical ones are defined by respiratory or multi-organ failure. The symptoms, treatments, and timelines of having the disease vary depending on which category patients fall into. So let's break down what having COVID-19 looks like day to day for each level of severity. It can take as few as 2 or as many as 14 days after being exposed to the novel coronavirus for the first symptom to develop. This is when it might feel like a cold or the common flu. Many patients develop fevers early on. The World Health Organization China Joint Mission saw that about 88% of people who had COVID-19 had a fever. Another study out of China showed that while only 44% of patients had a fever on admission to a hospital, 89% eventually developed one. But there have been some cases that led with gastrointestinal symptoms. Diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, and/or abdominal discomfort may appear a couple of days before respiratory symptoms. This isn't the norm, though, because COVID-19 is a respiratory disease. That means for most patients, the virus will start and end with the lungs. In the early days of infection, the virus invades lung cells. Specifically, this can damage the cilia, the hair-like projections that move around to keep airways clear of mucus and debris.
Yeah, so guys, don't forget, there is no cure for the virus, but the virus attacks different organs and different things and cells in your body. So what they do is they treat those things that the virus attacks and damage. So this particular virus, it attacks your lungs. So they got to treat your lungs. This is why you're allowed to go to the hospital, the ER, for this to be done. But if they can't treat it, they will not admit you. So the other symptoms, the fever, all that type of stuff, nah, you got to stay home with that.
When cells get infected, they die and shed off, adding to the debris and hindering your body's ability to keep stuff out of the lungs and trachea. The inflammation causes damage, and damage causes more inflammation. And this cycle could continue until there's no healthy tissue left. And inflammation might explain why a dry cough is one of the most common symptoms. Same goes for shortness of breath and phlegm production. Other symptoms that can appear around this time are fatigue, sore throat, headache, joint or muscle pain, chills, and a runny nose. By day 5, patients with pre-existing conditions might find that they have trouble breathing. And it usually takes about 7 days for a person to go to a hospital. Mild cases, though, usually clear up by this time. But those with moderate to critical cases will have developed pneumonia, which can range from non-life-threatening to severe. Recovery time for these patients could be anywhere from a few days to weeks. For some severe and critical cases, though, symptoms can escalate into acute respiratory distress syndrome. ARDS is an illness that happens when fluid builds up in the lungs. Inflammation triggers a flood of immune cells that are meant to target the infection. They're usually isolated to infected areas, but sometimes the body goes overboard, which is when the immune cells start killing anything in their path, including healthy cells. ARDS is often fatal. In critical cases, it can lead to respiratory failure, requiring advanced life support. And this is most likely when patients head to the ICU. ARDS treatment includes supplemental oxygen and mechanical ventilation. The goal is to get more oxygen into the bloodstream, since the lungs can't. When this treatment doesn't work, the lungs are basically too flooded to get any oxygen into your bloodstream. That's the cause of most COVID-19 deaths. And even when a patient survives this phase, they could be left with permanent lung damage. SARS punched holes in some infected people's lungs, giving them a honeycomb effect. And these lesions have been seen in people affected by the novel coronavirus too. Early studies found that most people who die of the disease will do so within 14 to 19 days. And on average, people who recover are released from the hospital after 2.5 weeks. But within 14 to 19 days, found that most people who die of the disease will do so within 14 to 19 days. found that most people who die of the disease will do so within 14 to 19 days. Found that most people who die of the disease will do so within 14 to 19 days. Found that most people who die of the disease will do so within 14 to 19 days. Found that most people who die of the disease will do so within 14 to 19 days. And on average, people who recover are released from the hospital after 2.5 weeks. But with the most critical cases, recovery could take months. Once a patient is in the recovery period, it's possible that they could still be contagious. These people should work with their doctors and public health officials to determine when they're no longer a risk. As of now, there is no vaccine for the virus. So the best way to avoid getting sick is to avoid being exposed. COVID-19 spreads easily from person to person through coughing and sneezing. So wash your hands often and avoid close contact with people who are sick, and clean and disinfect surfaces that you use daily. COVID-19, 14 to 19 days. So within 14 to 19 days, these will do so within 14. Most people who die of the disease will do so within 14 to 19 days. Most people who die of the disease will do so within 14 to 19 days. Most people who die of the disease will do so within 14 to 19 days. And on average, people who recover are released from the hospital after 2.5 weeks. But with the most critical cases, recovery could take months. Once a patient is in the recovery period, it's possible that they could still be contagious. These people should work with their doctors and public health officials to determine when they're no longer a risk.
Hi, Dr. Vong here. I had the honor and privilege of sitting down with a really good friend of mine, Dr. Terry Simpson, who is a very famous and well-respected bariatric surgeon, author, and researcher. And he has a background not only in bariatric surgery, but also virology, where he did a lot of research on viruses. And so he's a really good expert on this COVID-19. In this interview, we discussed what makes COVID-19, this coronavirus, different than regular influenza, who's at risk, what are the leading risk factors, what you can do to prevent contracting it, what can you do if you do contract it. We also debunked some myths such as ibuprofen making it worse, vaccinations. It was a really good interview. Unfortunately, I failed to hit play for the first 5 minutes, so the video is going to pick up in the middle of our interview. But regardless, enjoy. If you found this helpful, I hope you'll share the video. Thanks. Bye.
The people who get this get exceedingly sick, and those are the ones that are bursting our healthcare system. And the final one is, if you get on a vent with pneumonia from influenza, you're going to be on the vent 2, maybe 3 days. Very few people, you know, the recovery rate's about 80 or 90% of getting off a vent. If you get on a vent with this, you have about a 15% chance of making it out alive. And you're going to be on the vent 9 to 14 days. So this is a nasty virus for those that are affected by it.
Yeah, and they're really starting to look at this and saying, you know, the ARDS, the acute respiratory distress syndrome that comes from this COVID is somehow different than just normal ARDS. I know that sounds weird, normal ARDS, but somehow it's different. Do you have anything to say about that, or you think it's?
Oh, it's completely different because it just destroys. This virus, if you get it in your lungs and you're having problems with your lungs, you have a race. You have a race between 3 things: your immune system killing the virus, your lungs being destroyed. And part of the problem is when the immune system are starting to destroy the lungs, then you really have a problem. We don't know why that is, but there are these people, their immune system just runs away and they say, we're going to kill everything. Because when an immune system starts killing something, there's the very specific part of the immune system, antibody, gets on top of the virus, makes it inactive, gets rid of it. And there's the very non-specific immune system, which sort of says, we're going to destroy this tissue so this virus, this foreign body won't have a chance. That's the part of the immune system that goes crazy with this virus.
So that's a good segue into my next question for you, which is like, who do you think are at risk for this coronavirus, this disease, for bad outcomes?
The worst people for outcomes on ventilators are people who are morbidly obese. When we look at all of the risk factors, and the risk factors.
I thought this was an old person's disease. Isn't that what people were saying a few weeks ago? This only old people get this, only old people suffer from this. Why are you saying it's morbid obesity?
Because when you look on the ventilators, when you look at those who die, the vast majority of them are morbidly obese. And while yes, the older you get, the worse it is. And clearly in China, that was the case, in Italy in the case, but China and Italy have one thing that we don't have in the United States. They have a very high smoking rate. And when you have a high smoking rate, you don't have much lung tissue to begin with if you've been that way. So men are always worse off, but morbid obesity, that's the thing that gets people on the vent and has a hard time getting off. And that's where my fellow bariatric surgeons are actually doing some good. Because if you get people into a better class of their obesity, you're going to save ventilator space, which means we have room for other people and other things.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that because most places have canceled elective surgeries and they consider bariatric surgery elective, and we can talk about when it looks like we might be able to go back to bariatric surgery. But I've been saying that this disease in America is going to start affecting younger and younger people, precisely by what you said, because of morbid obesity. Do you agree with that, or do you see that happening?
Well, they're certainly going to be, I don't know that they have any more, well, it's going to get everybody. It's going to get all of us if we don't have a vaccine. We can't hide that. We're not going to hide from this. We're all going to get it. And yes, when the morbid obese start getting it, they are the ones who suffer the most. So yeah, that's going to be the key demographic.
So apart from morbid obesity and age, what else puts you at risk, would you say?
Diabetes seems to be one of the bigger ones. Immune suppression is another one. Depends on the type of immune suppression, because some people with immune suppression actually do a little bit better. That's esoteric science. We don't need to get into it so much. But those are the primary ones: age, morbid obesity, hypertension, diabetes.
So I've gotten this question a couple of times regarding high blood pressure. If this virus is attacking this ACE inhibitor receptor, this ACE receptor, then does being on an ACE inhibitor help you or hurt you?
The answer is yes, or the other answer is sometimes. When you're on an ACE inhibitor, you upregulate your number of receptors. When you get put on a vent, you're probably not going to be taking your ACE inhibitor. So now you have an increased number of receptors, and the virus has more receptors to attack. So it's sort of like, are you at increased risk? Yes. Should you stop it? Probably not, because you want the lisinopril to bind to those ACE inhibitors so that the virus doesn't. So yeah, that is that maybe thing.
So what is something what are things people can really do to help protect themselves from this virus?
Stay away from other people. If you're an introvert, this is
a good time to be an introvert.
This is a great time. I'm not an introvert. You're not an introvert. This, it's like, I just want to go out and, have some breakfast or something at a deli. But no, this is the thing. And what I'm concerned about, and what I see in my community here, is more and more people are getting out. More and more people are testing the boundaries. You can't blame them. And they have to be constantly reminded. The other thing I worry about is people thinking a mask is a safety net or a security blanket. Because, all right, wear a mask if you feel comfortable. For God's sake, just stay inside. Don't go out. And the other thing I recommend to people who are parents is like, designate one person that you're going to sacrifice, husband or wife. Because think of it, if you've got, I know it's horrible, but if you've got kids, you want one person to go out getting the groceries. You want one person to be careful. You don't want both of them going out and getting into trouble. So it's a practical thing.
So are you saying masks don't help you catch, or, do they help at all?
We don't know. A lot of the data used on masks is influenza, and influenza is not the same as COVID. They're two different viruses. They're two different sizes. We think that it could be aerosolized and given. Well, we don't have the information. But let me take you back to Wuhan, China, where I have been. It's a very industrial city. It's a great city. It has a lot of fashion. It's a beautiful city. You know what happens when someone gets a sniffle in Wuhan? They put on a face mask. Did that stop the beginning of this? It didn't. a lot of people in Southeast Asia, it is considered polite to wear a mask if you have a sniffle so you don't bother other people.
Yeah, so China is where this started, and they're hanging steady around 83,000 cases. New York today has over 90,000 cases, so New York has more than the entire country of China. Do you believe the data coming from China, or do you think there's a cover up? There's a lot of people with conspiracy theories.
I mean, yeah, there's always a conspiracy theorist out there, and I kind of think that you sort of have to say whatever we can learn from there, we learn from there, and right now we have to learn from our new data. Because I don't know if it's a cover up. We certainly know they didn't have the amount of test kits that we have now. And so we're going to get more information, more data from our own country and other countries than we will from China. China, it's sort of burned through the population. Their stuff has worked. What we learned from them is men are affected more than women. Older people have more morbidity and mortality from the disease. And that if you put strict isolation, that's it. We've also got the sequence of the genome from them. We know the different genomes that are out there so we can track them. But pretty much we've learned kind of what we can. Whether their numbers are correct or not, it's kind of like, I'll leave that to the conspiracy theorists. I don't care. It's like, what can we do now where we are? You lost audio. I understand he's done this before.
You can't hear me?
And now I can.
Ah.
There you go. You just unplug that. You know, really, you can. Do you want? I can send you some.
They're trying to shut me down.
But again, it's sort of like we can waste time talking about that as a society, but I think it's silly. I think what we have to do is say, what are we learning from New York? What are we learning from Los Angeles? And what are we learning from Florida? I mean, it's sort of like this guy doesn't close down his beaches, but then all of a sudden won't, as a humanitarian, take in the ships that have sick people. It's like, really?
Oh yeah, don't even get me started. That's really weird, really weird. So President Trump, whatever your politics are, said this week that
he blew it, yeah.
100,000 to 240,000 deaths. And we are currently at 2% death rate, 2.5% death rate in the United States, which if you do the math, that's going to be 5 million to 10 million cases in the US alone. Do you think it's going to be about those numbers? Do you think it's going to be worse, better?
I think once we get to testing, we'll have a better idea. We just came out with a rapid test.
Mm-hmm.
Some hospitals have their own rapid tests. I think we're going to ultimately see that the total number of cases are much higher than that, and the death rate will be much lower in terms of percentage. In terms of how many people will die, when we look at what's going on in New York, where we're seeing 0.5 to 1.5%, again, we're inhibited by not having the testing data. We really are.
Yeah.
But it's pretty clear it's affecting a lot of people. It's a very contagious virus. And our hope is this.
I'm sorry, how is this a death rate of 2.5%? And Italy today, their death rate's like 11%.
I know.
Crazy high. That's a whole nother topic of discussion. But how does that compare to
pasta is not good as well.
How does the death rate of 2, 3, 4% compare to the seasonal flu, just to put that in perspective for people?
Well, seasonal flu is usually a death rate around 0.6 to 0.6%, depending on the flu. The worst flu in the world were more than that. The 1918 pandemic, we think that probably the death rate from that was 2 to 6%. So it's hard to say, but the more we test, the more we're going to find people positive, the more that percentage will go down. But thinking, will there be 100,000 deaths? That's not out of the realm of possibility at all. I think 200,000 might be more, but I'm thinking with we're seeing in California today, we only had 210 extra new cases. We're flattening out. So we're going to see some flattening.
What do you say to people who say, yeah, exactly, Dr. Simpson, like, you test more people, the death rate's going to go down. And this is just not worth destroying our economies for. That, it's not as bad as everybody says, and we're ruining our economies, we're ruining the school systems, we're ruining everything, all for a much lower death rate. And this is all media hype. What's your response to that?
Well, the response is that you can't measure death rate just in what the virus kills. Because let's take New York City as an example, or Los Angeles as an example. A couple of days ago, New York City, the 911 system went down because it was overwhelmed with calls. There is no ventilator available in New York City today. So if you have garden variety pneumonia, if you have a heart attack and need to be put on a ventilator, you may die. You may not get there. It may not be there. So when the healthcare system is so overwhelmed by this 20% of people who go to the hospital, that means that everything else that is a problem that we have in our society, from broken legs to whatever, now is exacerbated. We go back to 100 years because we can't help people. So yeah, it is a big problem that way. And that's why we have, the Mercy and the ship coming in LA. That's the big problem of it. It's like, yep, we may only have 100,000 deaths. I don't think 100,000, I don't think that's
a lot.
Right. Think of how much money we spent in Vietnam, and we had 55,000 deaths of our youngest, bravest, and best.
Right.
We're going to have 100,000 deaths.
Crazy.
That's a lot. We're going to have hospitals overwhelmed. So more people are going to die from heart disease, from cancer, from pneumonia. I mean, think about it. People are afraid to go to their doctors. So, think of the patients that you've known that have come in and said, well, I thought it was hemorrhoids and it turned out it was a rectal cancer. They quit going off to the doctor for a while because they're afraid. So this is a big problem. However, we are almost at the point where we can test everybody quickly. And that's what will solve our economy. We need to put the money into testing. Because imagine this. I walk into the hospital here, they take my temperature, ask a questionnaire, hand me a mask. You walk into the hospital and have my little slip. We're getting to the point where we can test people and have results back within 15 minutes. The ability to do that means we can open up people and say, all right, you have green light, go. You can go out and you can wander about. You get symptoms, because we're going to test you, and every time you come into a place, we're going to check your temperature. You come into our restaurant, we kind of check your temperature. You come into our hospital, we're going to check your temperature. But once a week, you can be tested. And if you're clean, fine. Or if you have antibody positive to it, so we know you've been exposed, you're making antibody to it, you're safe, you have a green light, go. We're at the point where it's cheaper now to mass produce the tests than it is to close our economy. So that's the answer to keeping it open.
Mass testing, and that's quick and easy. That's really amazing. You mentioned the Vietnam War, and I don't know if you remember, but I'm a Vietnamese boat person and I'm a Vietnamese immigrant. So, America really touches my heart, So I'd like to speak to the people of heartland America, our breadbasket, the centers, like places like Nebraska and Wyoming, and the states that don't have that many cases, and they just don't understand what the big fuss is. What can we tell them? What wisdom would you give them?
I think that there were those of us who are my fellow virologists, my fellow physicians who were in this, when we saw this first cases land in America, I changed my behavior, but I went up against a lot of people like my brother, who's very right-wing. And finally, when they start seeing what happens, they believe it. And a lot of people don't have that imagination, but it will come to your community because no community is going to shut itself off. We're not going to dig moats, pull centuries out. Things aren't going to shut itself off. So it's going to come. And unfortunately, when it comes, it doesn't take long to spread. I mean, think about it. A month ago in California, there weren't even a few hundred cases.
Mm-hmm.
That's how fast it spread. So,
I want to talk about that spread here in a second, because I'm really worried about India. I want to see if you have the same concerns as I do. But speaking to what this vein about the United States, I've been telling people that it's going to probably peak in mid-May, but now it seems like we're going to have different states peaking at different times. Yeah. Like New York is going to peak Washington, I think, is already peaked. They've been around 500 cases. They're, where the
Seattle's going down. The rest of the states,
yeah,
peak a little bit, but certainly the major metropolitan areas down. Yeah, California is probably going to peak in a couple of weeks. if it hasn't already. We're seeing sort of a leveling off. But different, you're right, different states. So there's a couple things that will sort of save us. The more sunlight we get, we know for certain that this virus stays on surfaces for hours, unless they're copper surfaces. The more sunlight there is, the more the virus degrades. As we get into the summer season, we will see more virus degradation, which means there will be less people getting infected. So it's going to be like influenza in that way, in that in the summertime, it will die down. Our hope is we can A, get more tests, B, develop maybe a vaccine, see if we get an antibody test. And those are all things, so when the fall comes and it comes back, we will be better prepared for it.
That's a good segue to my next question, which is talk about the cycles. You think it's going to come back? Let's say we get through this mid-May, June, it's starting to die down. And I've been warning people because exactly what you said, the ventilators, these patients are on the ventilators for 2-3 weeks. So there's a lag time with deaths. If we're peaking in the beginning of May, now we're having the peak of deaths in the middle of May, June, and then people are going to be panicking. And then we maybe have a break in July, but then it's going to come back again, is it, in October?
Yeah, it's most certainly will.
And I don't think we'll have a vaccination ready by then. I mean, it's 12 months to 18 months for a vaccination.
Well, think about it. We've been looking for a vaccine for HIV for 20 plus years. We don't have one yet. You can't count on a vaccine. Now, the difference is it's hard to make vaccines for retroviruses, and I know I'm getting a little bit wonky here. It's a little easier for coronaviruses. I mean, anybody who owns a cat probably has vaccinated a cat against feline distemper, which is a coronavirus. Cats are prone to get coronaviruses. You can give your cat this disease. Your cat probably can give it to its friends and neighbors. So another reason to get rid of all the cats in the world. But
I'm gonna get hate mail now from all the cat lovers.
I know,
Thank you.
know.
So then tying in what you said earlier, then maybe our approach should then be to get antibody testing plus this rapid testing in preparation for the next fall wave that's coming.
Oh yeah, imagine the things that we can do. South Korea led the way, Taiwan led the way. Everybody is tested. Everybody is tested frequently. You have the ability to, let's say we find out, all right, you are positive, you need to self-isolate. And we put this, so now your phone says red. Now we can monitor your movements on your phone. And if you walk outside the zone, you automatically get a fine on your phone of $2,000 when they come and arrest you. We have the technology to do that. I don't know if you saw, but a company geotagged everybody that went into Florida.
Where they all went.
And then where they all went. And it's like, oh my gosh, you know, sort of like, you know, the old story, the farmer goes out, gets coronavirus and comes back and affects the herd, you know. It's happened.
Yeah. So I want to talk about India and maybe some troublesome hotspot areas that you're seeing in the United States, and then talk about when are we going to get back to normalcy and bariatric surgery, elective surgeries, things like that, because that's really our patients are watching us trying to figure out, you know, when their lives are going to go back to post-bariatric surgery.
And they're at home and eating, because that's
I know.
It's do you know alcohol consumption's up 55%, or alcohol sales are up 55%?
Can you blame them that?
No.
No.
I want the recipes. The most popular closed Facebook thing for surgeons was the whiskey one.
Oh.
It's like, we're dying here.
I
in terms of getting back, yeah, we'll have some time this summer, and we should use the time to prepare. Because while New York will have gone through it and be ready for the next wave, places that are going to be the smaller cities in America are going to get hit in the fall and in the next winter.
So what do you want to say about what's happening in New Orleans and Detroit and maybe some other areas that you see that are at risk? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look at, we're going to hit the population dense places first, and those are all them. I mean, New Orleans, having Mardi Gras, and you know, it's like now we're reaping the rewards of Mardi Gras. Plus, New Orleans is a very cultural city. There's lots of people coming in and going out, a lot of visitors. So yeah, New Orleans is going to get hit hard. Detroit, another dense place. But those places are going to get through it in the next while. But again, imagine this: we could reopen once the surge is through. We're back in business for bariatric surgery, for example, back in business for elective surgery. And for most cities in the United States, hospitals are the place are the economic engine. They're the most common industry besides the hospitality industry, which is getting hurt terribly. Use Uber Eats, tip your server. We need to get those hospitals back in that business because it's killing the economy. It's killing all of us.
So what if, and this is my warning, maybe I'm wrong, but we get over this and we start to let down our guards, but the Southern Hemisphere is now starting to go into their winter months, right? And so what if they get an uptick in coronavirus and we lessen our borders?
The great thing about this virus is we're going to get more infected from people in our own country than anybody else. I mean, that happened about 2 months ago. This virus is not like the ever-changing influenza virus, which every year, like I said, comes out with a new coat and first, so we have to bake a new vaccine to it. This virus is pretty stable genetically on its surface where we make the antibodies to. But that could change. So we could get a vaccine, or your own immunity could get stuck again with this. It hasn't happened yet, but it could happen.
So if there is a, and it's really funny, I saw your partner, Dr. Billy, bring this up on a telecast the other day, but the conversation about when will it be safe to go back to business as usual, bariatric surgery, what's the conversation surgeons and hospital administrations having right there?
Well, we don't have, many hospitals don't have great leadership. There are, chairmen of surgery in my day were people who are these august individuals, well-published, well thought of, bright, scholarly people. Now they're kind of anybody who wants to be chairman and wants to run a program. So I don't see the leadership in a lot of places where they're going to come out and say, these are the parameters by which we need to get back to work. But again, the parameters for the hospital are going to be, we're going to test people, we're going to test our staff, we're going to test patients. As long as this is a threat, until we have a good antiviral or thing, that's how we will be able to get back to the hospital business, not only for bariatric surgery, but colon and rectal surgery, people with colon cancers, people with diverticulitis, heart surgery. They seem to be exempt from this, but if you don't have a vent, you can't help them. But that's what we need to do. We cannot depend upon the virus burning through the population, killing everybody, doing the Monty Python, bring out your dead. Then now it's over, let's go back to work. We really have to nip it in the bud now because we have
that double-edged sword where we say, hey, we can help. The number one risk factor is morbid obesity, and our surgery helps that.
Right.
But they're also
even in the first month.
Right.
I mean, think about it. Most patients lose about 15% of their excess body weight the first month after weight loss surgery. Anytime someone loses 10%, you have tremendous health benefits. So here are these patients the first month after surgery, they're taking their shakes and everything. They're in the best nutritional shape of their lives, and they're losing weight, and they're becoming less risky. So yeah, bariatric
that's actually a good question too, where do you think that someone who's post-op from weight loss surgery, because there were a lot of people who had surgery like a few weeks ago, like, are they at more or less risk for COVID-19 if they are, let's say, 1 month to 6 months post-op from weight loss?
Getting to the point, they're still using a lot of supplements to maximize their vitamins and stuff, which is probably good. Hopefully they're eating better. Look behind me. Look who's there. Look who's there.
Oh, Dr. Billy.
So they're at a pretty good nutritional thing. The thing that you and I both have this long-standing campaign is you've got to keep eating better. You've got to increase the fruits and vegetables and legumes. And we're always fighting the people who say you should only eat chicken.
All right. Well, we've been going a pretty long time here. Just a couple of real quick questions from our audience here. Any natural supplements they can take, like elderberry, anything like that? Would that help with this disease or no?
There has been no efficacy shown in it. They've done some minimal trials in it. It doesn't really help. The best thing still is stay at home. I wish elderberry worked because
I use it.
I mean, I wished it worked. If it worked, that'd be great. There isn't much good evidence for this one yet. Actually, it increases the cytokines. So it's sort of like if you get COVID, that's the last thing you want to do.
What about the treatments? You hear about it with the anti-malarial drug, chloroquine and azithromycin, the Z-Pak.
Well, chloroquine and azithromycin together block the QT channel in the heart, and so there's a danger of widening QT and heart stopping. So that shouldn't be done just willy-nilly. There have been 3 studies, 2 bad ones, 1 good one. The 2 bad ones say wow, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, but when you actually look at the data, it's not that good. The one study that just came out of China said, oh, look at how great it is. They saved 1/4 of a day, but it wasn't a double-blinded study. So it's like, hey, we'll check this. I mean, you can't depend upon a non-double-blinded study when you say less than a day. And
I agree with that. I think the anti-malarial drug, chloroquine and azithromycin, I use it.
You should only eat chicken.
All right. Well, we've been going a pretty long time here. Just a couple of real quick questions from our audience here. Any natural supplements they can take, like elderberry, anything like that? Would that help with this disease or no?
There has been no efficacy shown in it. They've done some minimal trials in it. It doesn't really help. The best thing still is stay at home. I wish elderberry worked because
I use it.
I mean, I wished it worked. If it worked, that'd be great. There isn't much good evidence for this one yet. Actually, it increases the cytokines. So it's sort of like if you get COVID, that's the last yet. Actually, it increases the cytokines. So it's sort of like if you get COVID, that's the last thing you want to do. Yeah. Actually, it increases the cytokines. So it's sort of like if you get COVID, that's the last thing you want to do.
What about the treatments? You hear about it with the anti-malarial
double-blinded study when you say less than a day. And
I agree with that. I think a lot more testing and data need. I mean, people are jumping on this combo.
And the problem is there are patients who need those drugs. I mean, if you have a patient who has lupus or rheumatoid arthritis that are on Plaquenil, they need the drug and they can't get it.
So I think we're on the same page. You wouldn't think that, uninfected people should take it prophylactically.
No,
is that correct?
No, not at all.
Wouldn't help.
No, wouldn't help. There's no evidence that it helped. The stuff that's been done has been trying to decrease their days on ventilators, and it's just not. I wish it worked. I really did. We all wished it worked.
That's great. Couple questions. What about gloves? What do you think about wearing gloves to grocery stores, wiping things down? Is that helpful or not helpful?
Well, probably, we talked about this before camera. Probably one of the things that we've noticed more than anything in the epidemiology of this is people get it when they're eating out together. Think about when you're eating out together at a restaurant. You don't know who was at the restaurant before you. Oftentimes the table's just sort of slathered dry with some wet towel that has been used, for God knows what. Nobody changes the salt and pepper shakers. Nobody changes how the Heinz ketchup is there. The silver, the silverware and the plates, they're usually pretty clean. They have industrial strength dishwashers, but everything else in a restaurant isn't. So when you look at the cases in Los Angeles, for example, if you look at the chart of where it comes, it goes right down Wilshire Boulevard. I can't think of a group of people that eat out more than there. If you look at what's happened in New York, it's predominantly in Manhattan. They eat out a lot there. So part of it's, and Milan, I mean, you don't cook at home in Milan. You eat out every day. So, the contact is fine. So wearing gloves out when you're shopping, great. Just don't touch your face with them. That's one way you can avoid them. Wiping down things with sterile things, that's great. I actually prefer a dilute solution of bleach or a solution of hydrogen peroxide. Spray it on, let it dry. That's more effective than wiping it with the Clorox wipes.
Yeah, I agree with that. The question about.
By the way, there's 2 tablespoons of bleach in a quart of water, just so people know.
Yeah, it's pretty diluted. What's your take on the ibuprofen controversy? Is it good to take ibuprofen or not? Where do you stand with that?
I think that's correlation and not causation. And I'm sure you got the same things where they sent you, usually a private message, some radio guy saying, I talked to this doctor and this doctor said it made it worse. And it's like, before that came out, if you had what you thought was a cold, you'd probably take ibuprofen. And you'd probably take a lot of it. I mean, when I was sick with pneumonia, I was taking ibuprofen all the time. So it's correlation, it's not causation. It actually decreases cytokines. It's actually probably, theoretically, it should be good, and there's no good reason why it wouldn't. Now, what's interesting is when we look back at the 1918 flu, which affected young people more than older people, you know, one of the treatments was 30 grams of aspirin, and a lot of these people bled out of their lungs. That was probably a bit too much.
too much aspirin there.
So if you, I mean, it's like, so I think it's correlation. I don't think it's causation. I think anybody that you did before that came out would have said, yeah, I took Advil.
Yeah.
They weren't, they never checked, by the way, Tylenol levels to see if it had the same thing. So if you feel good about taking Tylenol, fine. If I get it, I'm going to take Advil.
This is my last question for you, because I got this question a lot, and I just want to confirm, you know, what I know about virology too. If you catch this coronavirus, can you catch it again? There's a lot of myths kind of going back and forth on the internet that you may be able to catch it again. What say you, Dr. Simpson?
So that was part of the China data that came out. And part of the people said is, wow, this person got sick and then they caught it again. So it was clearly coronavirus both times. And if you talk to people, and I know you've had it, I've had it, I think I had this back in December. I had the worst cold. I couldn't shake it. Dr. Billy was telling me in January he was disabled by a cold. Now he tells me he was disabled by a cold. I was all around him. But that was all probably influenza B, which was highly prominent and a pretty bad actor. When you don't test, you don't know. We do know that people develop antibodies to this. And not only do they develop antibodies, but the most successful tests to date are when they've taken those antibodies out of people who've had it and give them to them patients. They seem to turn this around. So the data is pretty good that you probably aren't going to get it again this year, maybe next year.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. A lot of comments right now from the bariatric community, and I want to get your take on this, where they say bariatric patients aren't supposed to take ibuprofen. That's a no-no. Where do you fall on that?
Why do they say that?
Because every freaking bariatric surgeon tells them they can't take ibuprofen, which is a fucking myth. My first F-bomb!
Okay, so the most common procedure done in the United States is a gastric sleeve. And we know that within 2 weeks of taking the gastric sleeve, your mucosa has covered everything. And sure, you could always get an ulcer from ibuprofen or aspirin or Advil. That doesn't mean it's a contraindication. It means you have to be careful. You can't be crazy about it and take some, because without having bariatric surgery, if you take too much ibuprofen too often, you can get a stomach ulcer, you can get a perforation. We've all seen those. That doesn't mean you can't take it. So I always say to people, don't take it for a couple of weeks after we do your surgery. If you take a lot, make sure you do a proton pump inhibitor or some Pepsid, not Zantac anymore, by the way, that's out. But you know, we recalled all of Zantac for cancer. So I think that's kind of one of those myths that you just can't kill.
But what about bypass patients? Are they a higher risk?
Well, bypass patients typically, when we find ulcers in them, there is a case where they have taken a lot of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, and on the jejunal side of the anastomosis will have an ulcer. But again, that's just when we see those, we see they have taken that. There isn't.
Yeah. And I think the old studies were actually smoking plus ibuprofen is really bad for gastric bypass.
And I gave up smoking, so anybody can.
If you can do it, I can.
I know, I gave up.
That's right. I'd like you to just real quick, you know, I want to just thank you for all your work. I mean, I know that we've got a lot of viewers watching right now, and a lot of them don't know what an awesome, special person you are. And I just want to take this moment to honor you and tell you
thank you.
How much I look up to you. You've been doing bariatric surgery for a long time. You're one of the forefathers. I'm not calling you old, but you are very respected.
It's blonde hair. It's platinum. It's the original platinum blonde.
You're very respected in our community, and whenever you go to conferences, everybody wants to, you know, talk to Terry Simpson. And you just made this move from Phoenix, Arizona, out to Ventura, California. So I'd love to let you have an opportunity to talk about your new practice, maybe plug your location, when, you know, if you're taking new patients, how do they get a hold of you?
We're doing it all by telemedicine for the moment because that's what we have to do. We're hoping that, and I think a lot of bariatric surgeons out there are doing the same. So if you are wherever you are and you need weight loss surgery, find your local surgeon, and you may have to start with telemedicine, and that's fine. We can do that. No, I've known Dr. Billy a long time. We've known each other longer than we would ever care to admit. And originally, I tried to recruit him to Arizona because, as you know, I had this really nice practice in Arizona. And he thought about it, I think, for maybe 30 seconds. I'm not sure. But I took him to a nice restaurant where we could see all the beautiful things, the city. And then he said, you know, I really can't do it. Why don't you think about coming to Ventura? So I thought about it. Then the fires came and the mudslides came and the earthquakes and the locusts and the plagues. And I said to my wife, I said, you know, I've known him so long, I got to go down. We have to go there and tell him I'll just stay in Phoenix and he should come out there. And we got here and I looked around, my wife said, you're not going to have that conversation, are you? No. So Dr. Billy and I are both gray in the hair, experienced bariatric surgeons here in Ventura. He's been here a long time. He's got a great reputation internationally and certainly locally. And it's fun to be with a colleague who you can bounce stuff off to and someone who is thoughtful and careful in the operating room. And that's a hard combination to find always, someone that you can get along with and do things with. Not easy, but it's great. So we really like it. We like operating with each other. I like giving him a hard time. He likes trying to bring me donuts in the morning to break our rivalry. Yeah. But
how do they find you if they want to get in contact with you guys?
drsimpson.com is easiest way to find me, drsimpson.com. And they can find me that way. And on Facebook. I mean, I'm on Facebook if I are. Yeah, I have
great videos, by the way. You do great cooking videos.
We just released a cooking video where I taught Dr. Billy how to make an amazing sauce with green beans.
That was embarrassing that Dr. Billy didn't know how to grind a pepper shaker.
Well, you know, I've been reading, but I mean, our whole thing, as you know, because of my culinary thing, I want patients to cook because the more they cook at home, the better results that they will have.
So drterrysimpson.com. Any final last encouraging words for those watching, Doc?
We're going to get through this and we're going to get over this. And if we use the technology, it will be faster. And please encourage the leaders of your community to encourage people to do that because we want to get through this. We want to get the economy started again. But, and no, you'll probably get this and you'll probably be just fine. But if you're not, there are a lot of really good dedicated doctors out there that'll take care of you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time and all your efforts and all your teaching.
Where are you located now? I see this Texas A&M thing.
I'm in Houston. Some people don't think I'm a really doctor, so.
Really?
Yeah, I know. I retired. They're like, you know, you're not practicing. You can't be called a doctor. I went to med school. I have a diploma. You have to call me doctor.
I know. And, you know, I mean, they didn't charge you that much for that diploma, did they? I mean, no, he's, no. I've known Dr. Vong a while. And actually I got this book one time and said, you're mentioned in this book by this surgeon. And it's like, really?
Yeah, that was in the early days, man. You were a Latvian forefather for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, man. I really enjoyed talking to you. And
Good talking with you. Thank you for having me.
It's day 74 of the coronavirus pandemic in America, and we've been closely following the trials of a promising drug combination to treat the virus, hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, commonly known as Z-Pak. The FDA has just given emergency approval to use hydroxychloroquine to treat COVID-19, and 30 million tablets have been donated to our country's stockpile. And we told you about an early draft of a randomized clinical trial out of China, showing improvements in a small group of patients. It provides a glimmer of hope. But how is it doing in practice? Today, a doctor shares his new experience of how COVID-19 patients are doing on hydroxychloroquine. But first, here's the latest. As global coronavirus cases approach 1 million, a decades-old malaria therapy, hydroxychloroquine,
Let's talk about symptoms.
And raises concerns. Prescriptions have jumped, shortages followed, and some are accused of hoarding. The president shared his feeling that this drug has tremendous promise, and the FDA granted emergency use. But can hydroxychloroquine provide effective treatment of COVID-19? The studies are underway. Researchers who conducted a recently updated observational study in France reported hydroxychloroquine combined with azithromycin allowed patients to rapidly discharge from highly contagious wards because they were less contagious. But researchers in Shanghai reported disappointing results with CT scans showing little difference in disease progression with hydroxychloroquine over the already acceptable results they were achieving with other drugs. However, a new study of 62 pneumonia patients in Wuhan, China was encouraging. Patients who received hydroxychloroquine had 1 day less of coughing and fever. Their pneumonia improved in 81% of patients receiving the malaria pill, as opposed to only 55% in controls. All of these improvements were statistically significant, which makes doctors more comfortable acting on the results. The Chinese researchers also noticed that none of their lupus patients already taking hydroxychloroquine developed COVID-19, and none of their COVID-19 patients had lupus. This observation, paired with data showing that hydroxychloroquine is active against the COVID-19 virus in a laboratory setting, prompted researchers at my hospital, New Presbyterian, and the University of Minnesota to start trials seeking to prevent illness in those recently exposed. Some say we shouldn't rush to treat before the larger U.S. clinical trials are complete in a few months. But for others, watching the death toll rise, if there's even a slim chance that hydroxychloroquine will save lives, now is the time to begin treatments. On average, in the early draft of the randomized clinical trial out of China, patients taking hydroxychloroquine had one less day of both fever and cough, and they had improvement in the appearance of pneumonia on CT scans, both statistically significant. Now, of course, more research is needed, but what experience are U.S. doctors having with it? Joining us via Zoom from Kansas City is Dr. Jeff Collier. He's the former governor of Kansas and a practicing physician using hydroxychloroquine and Z-Pak, the combo protocol, to treat patients at his hospital. Dr. Collier, thank you for joining us. You started using these experimental treatments a couple of weeks ago and we're optimistic. What new developments can you report since we last spoke?
Well, our reports are pretty similar to what we're seeing nationally and internationally. We now have a French study that had 80 patients that showed improvement using hydroxychloroquine. And we also just have a new Chinese study that was a first randomized study that's out there, and that too shows improvement.
So specifically in your patient population, are you seeing the kinds of trends? Have you been able to collect enough data to make any authoritative statements around it?
No, we haven't. We have several patients in different parts of it, but unfortunately, everybody is so busy we can't complete all of the trial that we like. I can just share anecdotally the half a dozen patients that I have and the reports from the colleagues that I've been working with that we too are seeing improvements that are pretty similar to the other studies. And that is, if you treat them early, they tend to get better faster.
Any complications using the drugs that you're aware of?
I have not seen any at this point in our studies or in the other studies that are out there. Most of them are, we look at making sure their heart rates are doing fine and making sure that they don't have any vision issues.
How are you using the results from China to inform your patient treatment plan? If you remember, they use hydroxychloroquine with an antibiotic. They didn't specify because they're probably different ones. Or do you stick to the AZT, to the azithromycin, Z-Paks?
We stick with the azithromycin here, and most of the folks in the United States are. However, there may be even shortages of that, and so we see improvement with just hydroxychloroquine, but it also seems to be synergized when you use azithromycin. What we're seeing is that fevers go down a little bit faster, cough is definitely reduced faster, and most importantly, people are not proceeding on to ventilator care as often.
So you mentioned you try to give it as early as possible. I gather many of those folks have mild symptoms. What do you do for people who progress to more severe symptoms?
Yeah, so of course they would continue on the treatment plan there, depending on what they're finding. Different doctors and different institutions are going different ways. Some of them will continue this treatment when they go into the intensive care unit, but they may also add options such as plasma and other options as well.
So you're field testing this treatment, which is what you do in battle, right? Yeah. I'll never forget what you told me in our first discussion, that you marched with the army you've got when you were going to war. But the treatment may not work. It may work, right? We're weeks away, at least, from a larger double-blind clinical study that might give us that information. So are you comfortable recommending this to other doctors? Because there's some out there who say they want to wait before they start using it in practice. How do you advise them as a colleague?
Sure. You know, as a colleague, about 1 out of 5 prescriptions that we write are for off-label uses. We're watching real science in real time. And, you know, we may see a couple of studies that go a different way. You need to aggregate them. People need to reproduce them. And for my colleagues out there, you need to think about what's best for my patient. What data do I have? And the data that we have so far is positive on this. The FDA has now approved its use in hospitalized patients. We're also seeing hospitals such as Mass General and the University of Washington, the University of Kansas, and community practices using this medication.
So the next wave of hydroxychloroquine use might be for healthcare workers as a prophylactic approach. I'm sure you noticed this, but in China, they noticed that folks who are already getting this drug didn't seem to get the virus. Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think we have enough pills to do it?
Well, I know for a fact that we have shortages across the United States, but they're being rapidly filled. We have a couple of companies that have donated more than 30 million tablets here to the federal stockpile, and that's going to get dispersed out here probably in the next couple of days. So we want to make sure that the patients that need Plaquenil for their arthritis, that they get it, but that we also have more to treat people. And I think you're also going to see some studies where we could prophylax. I'm talking to my friends in New York and in Louisiana, and they're on the front lines, and they would like to have some prophylaxis, and we hope that this would work there.
Are you on the drug yourself, or would you take it for prophylaxis if we had enough?
Yes, I would definitely use the drug to treat my family, and in the right setting for prophylaxis for myself.
So for everybody at home, the theory behind why hydroxychloroquine may work is twofold. In lab studies, it was found that it can stop the virus from invading cells, but the hydroxychloroquine has also been found to dial back on an overactive immune system. That's why people with autoimmune disorders are prescribed these medications. Much of the pneumonia associated with this virus seems to have an immune basis, as opposed to being from a bacteria growing in there that we might get with the flu. So Dr. Collier, are you observing these types of pneumonias in your patients as well?
Well, my personal patients have all ended up as outpatients. What my colleagues in the hospital at this point are seeing similar results overall.
And as a reminder for everybody at home, please, this is not a time for self-medicating. Do not turn yourself into a chemistry lab. Any plan ought to be reviewed with the doctor. It's a prescription medication for a reason. Thank you, Dr. Collier. I hope to speak to you again.
Good to see you.
Today we're going to be talking about masks. There's been a lot of information going around about wearing masks, and in some areas in China, it's actually a requirement to wear a mask if you go to a shopping center, if you get on the bus, and you get on the subway. But there are different answers as to which mask is better, which mask is best. Now, first of all, it's important to know that no mask is going to be perfect. No mask is a guarantee to protect you against the flu or against a coronavirus like the one that's going around right now from Wuhan.
Hey, what's up, guys?
But there are masks that are certainly superior and masks that are inferior. So we're going to talk about a little bit of those masks. But first, I'm going to put some gloves on because I don't want to contaminate any of these masks because I plan on wearing these masks. I'm not going to waste them just for a video. All right, so let's take a look at some of these masks. The one that I use most often that you see in my videos is this. This is just an N95 mask. Now, what does N95 mean? Well, 95 means that it blocks 95% of particles that are 300 nanometers or larger. Now, how big is the coronavirus? Actually, it's smaller. It's about half the size of 300 nanometers. So that means that this mask is not going to block coronavirus.
However, it does block air intake. Now, if you wear this mask, you can tell that you're not getting as much air, which is why it's actually very difficult to breathe and a little uncomfortable to wear these masks for any period of time. But that's just the way it goes. Now, there's another kind of mask that you probably have seen pictures of, especially if you're in here in China. You see a lot of people wearing these kind of masks. Often they're white. This is a gray one, but it has this. Now, if you haven't seen this before, you might look at this mask and think that this is an air filter. I remember I used to think this as well. And usually these are a little more expensive. So I thought, oh, that's great. This has an air filter on it. It's not an air filter. This is just an air valve. Now, what that means is that when you wear this mask, when you exhale, you can feel the air coming out of here. It's a little plunger that opens and lets the air out. Now, it's more comfortable to wear this mask because it's easier to exhale, which means you're not breathing in your own carbon dioxide. However, that also means that this seal is not very good. Especially if it gets moist, it can collect germs and you're breathing those germs in. So this is not an ideal mask for dealing with something like germs. Another thing to keep in mind is that originally these masks really aren't used for people that are worried about germs, but people worried about dust. So these are called respirator masks, dust masks. And we used to wear these all the time here because of the air pollution. So that's typically what they're used for. Now, doctors are wearing these now because they keep out air. So they're also going to keep out, particulate matter or germs in the air, but that's not originally what they're intended for. That said, you need to change your mask often. I've talked to some friends here recently and I've asked them how often they're changing their mask, and some of them don't change them for a week. Now, some doctors and some experts say that if you're not changing your mask frequently, like every day, you actually might be doing more harm than good because it's just collecting germs, especially when these get moist. Those germ particles, the bacteria likes to find a warm, moist place like a mask. So you need to change your mask often. Wiping it down and those types of things is not ideal. You really need to be replacing it. Now, what about these other masks that we're seeing, which is like this? I'm going to be careful opening this because I don't want to get these dirty. Now, if you've been looking at pictures regarding the corona virus outbreak here, you probably have seen most people wearing these kind of masks. Now, these are called surgical masks. They're very, very simple. They're much thinner than the mask I was just wearing. They also have this small metal clip inside so you can form fit it to your nose, which is nice. But when you wear one of these, you can immediately tell that you're getting less protection than one of the other masks. Why is that? Because when I breathe in, I can feel the air going in through here and under here. This is not a tight seal at all. Whereas one of these masks, when I wear this, I can really feel the difficulty of breathing. The air is coming in through here, which is what you want. Remember, when it says N95, it's blocking in 95% of the 300 nanometers or larger particles coming through the filter, not coming through the entire mask. It doesn't count for this. So if it's not going through here, if it's not going through your filter, it's not really doing a whole lot for you. So these masks, why are they so popular? In fact, some doctors are even recommending using these, some doctors here. Well, the reason is because these masks are disposable, they're cheap, they're easy for hospitals to give out to their workers. They don't cost much, they don't require fitting. You can dispose of them, single use, and they're just more convenient to use. That is why. The other reason is that these can contain germs just as the other masks can. So there was an article that was going around before, and I had stumbled across it, someone had actually sent it to me as well, that it actually recommended not using an N95, but using one of these masks. And it was really puzzling to me that it would say that. But when I looked through it very carefully, there in the text print said that you want to wear this if you're already sick. Yes, because this mask can prevent you from coughing onto someone else. It contains your germs. So yeah, if you're sick and you want to wear this, great, it'll be better than nothing. But if you're not sick, the protection that this gives, as opposed to just a piece of plastic or a piece of paper in front of your mouth, is not very great. It's about the same. Now, of course, these aren't the only masks out there on the market. There's all kinds of masks that you can get. There's also fake masks and there's real masks and all that type of thing. But one of the most important things is you want a tight seal. So if you've got a mask that you're wearing and you can feel air coming in through the sides, or you feel air coming in through underneath or up top where your nose is, that's not a great seal. You want something a little bit tighter. Now, what I do on my mask just to tighten that seal is I actually put knots behind the ears. That just gives it a little bit more tautness here in the elastic so that it pulls a little harder. I find that if I don't put this knot in, it feels really, really loose and a lot of air is coming out. Is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. It's very uncomfortable to wear this for any more than 2 hours at a time. But that's kind of the point. You don't want it to be comfortable because if it's comfortable, it's probably leaking air. Now, of course, there's other things that you can do. I've seen a lot of people, they actually put a surgical mask on first, and then on top of that, they wear an N95. I've seen pictures of surgeons even, or of workers in the hospital in Wuhan doing this. Obviously, this is going to be better than just using one or the other. In fact, there's some pictures of nurses that have like 6 or 7 of these surgical masks on. The more, the better. The more you put on, the more contained it's going to be. However, remember that none of this is 100%. One of the important things that a mask does is prevents you from touching your face, because that's a big way that germs are transmitted. So whether you're wearing a mask or you decide not to wear a mask, just be really conscientious of where your hands are and don't touch your face. Don't scratch your eyes, don't scratch your nose, don't wipe your mouth, because that's a really easy way to transmit the germs. Now, what is comforting to know is that now in China, almost everywhere you go, they're recommending buying the good masks, the N95s. However, they don't distinguish between the one with the valve like this and the one without the valve. So again, just to reiterate, the one with the valve is more comfortable, but you can still spread germs. And it's not as great of a seal as this is. The one without the valve is actually a little cheaper and it's a tighter fit. So it's better. So remember, less comfortable means probably a better seal. More comfortable means less of a seal, more risk. But nothing is 100%. So you use these at your own risk. Be hygienic. Wash your hands. Don't cough on other people. Those type.
All right, so Saneter is live. You dig? That's where everybody's going. Again, the fear mongering is a little more important than safety. Okay, so hey, let's all go to Saneter. Let's see what's going on. You dig? Maybe, hey, call in. Call in to Saneter and ask him, is he all right?